Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Glad to have you all here with us as we're in for a great night of paranormal, supernatural, near-death experience talk. Author Lynn Monet is here. Check out her hair. It'll look fantastic tonight. Absolutely fantastic. Let's say hello to all of you. We got Race Fan in the gold medal position, and Penny Van is in for the silver. Roy Boy taking home the bronze medal tonight. Hi, Sundance Kid. How you doing? Penny Van again. Monica, how are you? Monica will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Raymond L., Michael Morris, Hadley, Human Carl. How you doing? We love our veteran Human Carl around here. We love all veterans around here. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. Lisa C., Chris 716, Kurt M., Markham. How you doing? Another great veteran. And we got Nancy Hayes and Vash the Impaler. Donna, Sweet Donna Spencer. How you doing, Sweets? Good to see you. Laura Lobbs and Human Carl kicking off the Super Chat tonight. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Thank you so much, Human Carl, for your love. We appreciate it. Hi, Brad Ford, Logan L., and Asteroid coming. Pat Toohey, how you doing? Number 17 in your program, number 1 in your heart, starting at left wing. Lars Jansson from Stockholm, Sweden. Simon, the dog face from Australia. How you doing, buddy? Emmy Tong, nice to see you. Hi, Jen A. and Pixie Lara. Good to have you both here. Moving on, we have, Jenny's hit up a super chat. Thank you so much for that super sticker, Jenny. We appreciate your love and support. Robin McRae, how are you, my dear? Good to see you. Thin Lizzie, what's happening? Millennium, my man. Jessica Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Sea Warrior Son, good to have you back. Les Paul Holland, nice to see you as we continue on with roll call. Donnie Cho is here. Sweet Donnie Cho will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Continuing, Robert Lamoth, W. David Page, John Sabe Mellon, War Criminal, Paramarv. Good to have you all here. And who else do we have? We got O.B. Flett. Can't wait to see you in Vegas. Dude, the countdown is on, man. Countdown is on. Commonwealth Andrew, how you doing? Hey there, Shane Michael. What's happening, buddy? From West Coast Dogman, good to have you here. Stephen Edmond, thanks for coming on in. Ozzy Sue and Bones, how you guys doing? Digger Dog, what's happening? Little Marky Spender, a.k.a. Timber Hunter, what's happening? Lee the Bee, Kathy Evans, Susie B, thank you for joining us as we continue on with our roll call tonight. Katrina M., nice to have you here. And who else? We're going to have to switch on over. Matthew Gutka, good to have you here. And Applesauce, it's been a while, and you're early. Let's start that one right there. There we go. Bill WD-40 is going to be entering into the Spreaker chat room at any time here to lube us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. So you need lube. You know what I mean? All right. The gorgeous Amy WC. What's happening? Truth Entertainment. Good to have you here. Dirt Road. Thank you for joining us. Susan Alloway. Lance Coles. Gong Show. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Thomas Rock. How you doing, buddy? And scrolling on down, we have Cat Chaser, the awesome one. We are caught up. Super Chat is open. The store is open on our website, and we want all of you to get your horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a power show of woo tonight. Author, researcher, experiencer Lynn Monet is back with some paranormal, supernatural stories for us. Then in hour number 3, we're going to head to the swamp. Then from there, we are going to have Super Duke here for Bigfoot Radio and the Cryptid Reports. All right, let's get right to it, shall we? Our good friend Lynn Monet is a world-renowned author of Omnipresent, What Happened Next, and The Colors of Heaven Beings Never End, or Beginnings Never End. Yeah, she likes it when I butcher her book names, but I just did, and I can't rewind now. Lynn is a paranormal consultant and lecturer specializing in hauntings in the afterlife. She's an empath with the ability to see frequencies. Interdimensionally, most cannot. She has been a nurse for over 20 years, helped many people cross over to the other side with peace and love, and that's why we love her here. Lynn Monet, it is always a pleasure to have you on Space Radio. I'm going to be honest, your hair looks gorgeous.
Oh, well, thank you. And the pleasure's all mine, always to be here with everybody, and especially you, Dave. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I wish our radio audience could see your hair, because it looks incredible. It really does.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So
now,
I have
cool part about it, before we get going, just a few hours before tonight's show, I was actually on the air on your show.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me on as a guest. And now we get to turn the tides tonight.
That's right. And everybody absolutely loved you. I was going back through some of the chat and some things, and a few people even messaged me and mentioned what an awesome guest you are. And you definitely hit it out of the park. They absolutely loved you. Talk about a grand slam. Woohoo!
Thank you. So what's new? What's happening?
Gosh, let's see. I've got a couple of new books out, but I need a drum roll for this, so we can pretend that we're hearing a drum roll. Tonight, okay, everybody needs to listen to this clearly. Tonight, anybody that donates to this show while I am on here for the next 2 hours of $25 or more gets a free ebook of their choice from me. And how that'll work is you have the Omnipresent book. I have Omnipresent, What Happened Next. I have The Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End. I have The Gap, which is a new book that's out for adolescents and teens that goes into things like not going out on a date with stinky sneakers and what to do if a condom breaks. Yes, your adolescent needs to know that too, because they're getting busy at that age. And I also have an edit, which I will let you choose from as well, but you might have to wait 2 weeks to get it, is the third book in the Omnipresent series called Omnipresent 111 Becadon Drive, which is a story about a ghost, of which I should send that picture to you, Dave. I will send it to you afterwards. That was going from, it's the only naked ghost I've ever seen, and he was going from apartment building to apartment building, messing with women's undergarments and crawling in bed with them. Very creepy story that is also true. So during this time, $25 or over. How that'll work is Dave will know who is making the donation. He will get me your email information and let me know which book you choose, or he can give me your email information and I can contact you and know what book you choose. I will attach the ebook to an email that also copies Dave in on it so that he knows for sure that your ebook has been sent to you and received directly from me. And so here we go, $25 and over. Let's go. Woohoo! You got 2 hours only
You know
during this
what?
time frame.
You know what? That is really cool, and thank you. And I'm going to put that towards if anybody does do that, I'm not going to keep it for myself or anything. I'm going to put that towards making somebody a special donation for our Vegas party in Las Vegas.
Oh, well, that
So
would be nice. But yeah, definitely. That's also radio people calling in. So this 2 hours, it's a good deal because some of my books are a cost over that. Look at that. You got your first 25. Woohoo! We're on a roll. Let's go.
all right.
In the first
So
5 minutes here.
if you do that, like Derek just did, then what you do is email me at dave@spacedoutradio.com, dave@spacedoutradio.com, and I will get everyone off to Lynn after the show. I will do that.
That sounds perfect. And again, I will copy Dave in when I do send it. Then that way there's verification, not only directly from me to you, but he's also copied in on it so that he can see that it's also been taken care of as well. So both of us will know that you got your book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Very much appreciate that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I want to ask you, out of all the paranormal supernatural experiences that you have seen over your years as a nurse, what is one of the transitions that you notice that maybe there's similarities between people when they cross over?
It is that transitioning period when they're in a more active decline where they're due what is called rallying. And what this appears like to a person standing and watching them is that there'll be intermittent periods of where the person you'll walk in and you'll notice that their eyes are kind of glazed over, their feet are kind of flaccid, and they're hard to rouse. They're very, very hard to rouse. But then all of a sudden their eyes will brighten up, their toes will perk, and they'll come back in and they'll be talking about, sometimes they'll ask where they are because they've just been between the dimensions of between going home and coming back to earth. And so they're kind of like, why am I back here? So sometimes they will ask, but they also come back a lot of times too with very, very profound stories for family members, and talk about also seeing loved ones that they have seen on the other side.
Interesting.
So it's that transitioning period called rallying.
When we talk about seeing other people on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us, look, we miss the people who've gone before us. We do. How do we know that they're actually interacting with people on the other side rather than just an imagination that those people are there?
That is a good question. And there are several ways that you can determine this, since we need something a little bit more concrete over here with us. They are on the other side. They love to come and help with things, but they stand back until they are asked. They don't want to do any, they don't want to overdo for you because you need to learn your own lessons, but they do come in when you call. But the thing is that, a lot of times, like in the case of myself and my mother before she passed away, we set up a pact with each other where I had asked her to leave one of her hairs. And I think I had mentioned this. I don't know if I had mentioned this in the last show that we were on or not. So if I'm repeating myself, forgive me. But I had asked her to please leave one of her hairs at that time because life is so stressful and we're so distracted and busy, the kids, the work, the job, cooking a meal, all of those sorts of things, that sometimes we don't have time to feel those little gentle, soft brushes against your hand of where maybe they touch you or they touch your hair, because they do that. Or that whisper or that scent of their body, because we're so distracted with life in itself. So to make a pact with them, and you can still make a pact with them even though they've crossed over, because when they cross over, they still have all of their senses and they can hear you just the same as you can hear me right now. They can see you, and everything there is done by thought. So when you do think of them and connect with them in that way, they come immediately, whether you're aware of that or not. So, yeah.
Well, and that's comforting to a lot of people, because the one thing that none of us want to do, whether it's a traumatic situation or whether it's just, wrong place at the wrong time, or nature just calls and your time limit is up, none of us really want to die alone. That's the scary part for many of us. I know that's one of the big fears that I have about dying, is that I'm going to die alone. But really, what is alone if your loved ones who've already crossed over are with you to celebrate your transition?
That's very, very true. And that's also a very, very profound comment. The thing that is funny, though, is you would be surprised. There are some people that really don't want the human people around them when they pass away. Sometimes because they are uncomfortable with the sobbing or crying that comes with that. They feel, torn, wanting to stay to comfort people instead of crossing over and doing what they're needing to do. So I know, for instance, my father, he waited for us to leave. And as soon as we left, 30 minutes later, we get the call that he's gone. He was actually waiting for us to go. I have a friend of mine whose mother did the same thing. They were all in there crying, and she was kind of between places, and, didn't, she had the angels on one side calling her over, and her human family kind of still anchoring here because they didn't want her to go. So a lot of times they'll wait to cross over when people aren't there. Most of the time they like having people there. It's so important when somebody is getting ready to cross over to tell them that it's okay to go. They need to hear that it's okay to go, that you're going to be okay. People, we don't die, okay? We do not die. This is not the last time that you're going to see your mother, father, brother, dog, cat, fish. Well, fish maybe might be the last time, but your fur babies and all of those things, you will see them again. And keeping that in mind, kind of think of them going on a long vacation. So, hopefully that doesn't make it as devastating and final to understand that you will see them again.
I understand that, and I can appreciate that. I'm going to ask you a really weird question. Well, it may not be weird to you. It's weird for me to ask. Is death selfish? And what I mean by that is not selfish for the person who is, say, ready to cross over, but I'm saying selfish for the family as we try and grip onto those memories, and that life is too short, and every cliche that goes along with that. Are we too selfish about death?
I don't think, life is too short. The time frame, it seems to go by so quickly, but it's not even really about that, because most of what we do before we come in here is arranged prior to us coming in. So it's not, it's a fact of life. I mean, death happens, death is not prejudice. It happens to everybody. And hopefully at least that you can go about living the way that you want to right up until you take your last breath. So, it just is. It's not a matter of being selfish or unselfish or loving or kind act. It is.
Yeah, well, it really is. But let's focus, because I'll be honest with you, I'll end up having a panic attack here about death if we continue that conversation. And then you'll see a whole different side of mental Dave, coming through on that one. But
well,
go ahead if you got an answer.
I do have some very, very good advice. It is a fact of life, but I'm not going to go and talking about the dead part. I just want to say this, some things that people may not realize. And in all of my books that I've written, I always have a self-help section in the back to kind of guide you through tools, to make life a little bit easier. And in my book, Colors of Heaven, there is an area in the back that's called End of Life Directives. And what this talks about is, number one, when you go into an emergency room or hospital, you sign only for yourself, unless you have a child under age 18. The hospital doesn't care who signs those papers. And if the mailman's standing next to you and he's willing to sign, they'll give them to him. But whoever signs the paper gets stuck with the bill. And so many times I've seen elderly people in my profession who have been taking turns, two sisters, as a matter of fact, taking turns paying their mother's hospital bill for a 3-year period. This had been going on, and they still had more to pay. And these women couldn't even afford their medication. The truth of the matter is also, The book talks about a medical health care power of attorney and how to do that for free without an attorney. All that you need is the amount that it would cost for a notary. Talks about power of attorney and the fact that there are certain legal things, such as the healthcare power of attorney, that do not go into effect until the person is not able to consciously speak for themselves or make decisions for themselves. People, a lot of times, they're afraid to give that kind of power away, so to speak, because they think that somebody's going to pull the plug on them or, take their house away. It is simply a piece of paper until you are unable to speak for yourself. But there are ways to get it for free that attorneys don't want you to know about. And there's a packet called 5 Wishes, as a matter of fact, that you can print off your computer. Once that is signed, notarized, or even signed with 2 other witnesses, and it's better to do the notary thing because that stands more legally in the court of law. But there are a lot of helpful things in there, like, even changing your checking account, making sure that it's, John and Mary, not John or Mary, because if it's John or Mary, they'll shut your account down as soon as one of them passes away, and then the other one that's left behind won't have access to that account. And these are little things that people don't realize happen, especially the signing papers at the emergency room. I do have a story about that if you'd like me to share it with you.
Well, you know what? I don't really understand with what you're saying, because up here in Canada, it's way different.
Is it very different? Okay, because this is more of the United States thing. So, yeah. But
I'm not saying there isn't bills, but my goodness, I couldn't imagine.
Well, if you are in the United States, it's very, very difficult. And that's right, you have a different medical system, but anybody that is listening in the United States, this book will give you a lot of good pointers to protect yourself financially.
Well, maybe what we could do is after the show, we could drop some links in our chat for it, if you have any, and that way we can get that studied up. I want to ask you about near-death experiences, because you've dealt with many people who have had them. You've looked into them. For people who may not understand what an NDE is, could you explain that?
Yes, a near-death experience, of course, is a death that has not completed. We have, I believe, 5 to 6 different opportunities to cross early. That does not include suicide. These are actual stopping points, so to speak, that you can choose to exit if you want to. And again, suicide is a completely different ballgame. However, I want to say this because people always ask. This suicide, the part where you are medically assisted suicide because you are terminal or death is coming, does not count as a suicide on the other side. It is definitely more acceptable, and because death is coming. So you're not ending your contract early, so to speak, like a whole half of a lifetime. But with near-death experiences, a lot of times people talk about going into areas that are more dark. They talk about going into areas that are light as well. And people even ask, well, my friend, he had a near-death experience and he went down and he saw the devil. Do you think that he's going to hell? Well, if he was going to hell, he would have stayed there. And really, we judge ourselves, and that's questionable about if people really go there or not. But, I say back to them, well, he didn't end up going to hell because he came back. So I have several stories about near-death experiences that I would be happy to share with you also, to kind of bring some of that home. Some people, when they have a near-death experience, it's something very, very short. I have actually had a near-death experience. I had a surgery done, and there was a vessel in my chest that was nicked. Fortunately, it clotted itself, but I remember coming out of my body and going up, and I remember standing on a cloud bargaining with God, because I was a mother of a 4-year-old, and I was a single mother of a 4-year-old at that time. And I'm like, no, you can't take me. There's no way. And of course they told me at that time that it was not my time to go. And I remember coming back into the body and feeling the weight of the body, and also the feeling of the pain that I was having from the surgery. But most of the time, the people, when you talk about a near-death experience, they want to know about what happened on the other side, not so much, something like what I did, where I got to a cloud and I'm bargaining for, to get back into my body. But they do want to know what happens on the other side. And I have, my sister had a near-death experience when she was about 5 years old. She drowned in a hotel in a motel pool. And what had happened is I was newborn. My brother was 2 years old. My sister was 2 years old. Well, he was 3 years old. She was 5 years old because I was a baby. But they were following my dad to load the car, and my dad was kind of trying to take the kids along so that my mom could get me ready and get herself ready because they were packing to leave the hotel to continue on to wherever they were going. And my brother was following my sister along past the pool and following my father like little ducks. But there was at one point that my father wanted to hurry up and get something loaded in the car, and the kids were meandering. They're looking at flowers and daisy picking, and he got kind of perturbed with them. So he figured that he could race to the car and come back before anything could happen. But it just so happened that my sister had these little flip-flops on that were kind of flat on the bottom and slippery. And she and my brother were close to the pool, and my brother was threatening to tickle her. And she was like right along the edge of the pool, and he's like trying, and she's trying to pull away from him so that he can't tickle her. And all of a sudden she falls in the swimming pool. And she said that she remembers floating down to the bottom, and she was trying to feel for the wall with her foot, but when she fell in, she was too far from the wall. And she remembers thinking to herself, I wonder why somebody's not coming in to get me. Because of course my father was at the car, and my brother was 3 years old that was just standing at the poolside. And she remembers that all of a sudden in the water, it was as if she had put a mask on, because at first it was blurry and she could see the drain. She was afraid that the drain was going to suck her in. But then all of a sudden it was as if she had put a mask on and she could see everything very, very clearly. She said that this young woman jumped into the water and grabbed her out of the water, but she wasn't in it. She was an angel. So, and there's a little bit more to the story with that. So when this young woman grabbed my sister and pulled her out of the water, she said that they were hovering together hand in hand over the pool, and that my sister thought that it was very, very interesting that when she touched her hair, that her hair was actually dry after coming out of the pool. And she noticed that there was a couple of men. They heard the ambulance coming. There was a couple of men, including my father, leaning over this little body that ended up being hers. And all of a sudden, she's very content holding this angel's hand that's literally hovering with her over the water. And she notices that they're doing, CPR on her. And all of a sudden she's back in her body. And the first thing that she notices about that is that her hair was wet, because she had just noticed that her hair was dry when she was floating up in the air with this angel. Lo and behold, my parents had a late life baby 8 years after I was born. I was the youngest one. And when she got to be about 16 years old, my sister who had drowned, my oldest sister who had drowned, had this deja vu moment, because my youngest sister looked identical to the angel, the young girl that had jumped in the water and gotten her out.
Oh my gosh. Lynn Monet, near-death experiences will continue when we return on Spaced Out Radio. Oh, just sending shivers down my spine right now with that latest story. We will continue with NDEs right after this. I almost drowned once.
Did you?
And it was a weird feeling. I kept myself up, and I remember going under. I was about, how old was I about then? 18, 19. And I found my nephew on the beach. He was just sitting there playing toys, and I just beelined it right until my knees hit shore.
Oh, wow.
Scariest thing in my life, or one of the scariest.
Yeah, I bet it was. I mean, what a helpless feeling, you're floating and you can't reach anything, and you're not quite sure what to do. Drowning is a helpless feeling. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's scary.
Oh, yeah. Not a fun time. Yeah, mine was we swam, my sister and my buddy and I swam out to one of those buoys, that they mark off on a lake.
Yes, and yep.
And it didn't look that far. But coming back, all of a sudden, you're swimming and it's getting slower and slower and slower. And the next thing you're like treading water, and the next thing you know, shore just never seems to be arriving. Yeah. Then I finally started going under, and I would push myself back up, gasp for air, go back down. And then when I got to the dock where I just was really struggling, a bunch of teenagers were having a wrestling match on the dock, like a battle royal. And one of them or two of them jumped right on top of me. And I just went like right down, like 8 feet into the water.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, oh my God, like I have no air in my lungs. And so I bounced back up, gasped for air, and I literally doggy paddled with my line of sight on my nephew, who's now passed away, line of sight on him straight through until I felt gravel on my knees.
There you go. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that wasn't the day, man. Wasn't going to let that happen in front of my nephew.
No. Wow. Wow. What an amazing experience. Yeah, it is. It just, yeah. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Hi, Donnie. I know Donnie Cho.
Yeah, that's sweet Donnie Cho.
He was on your show recently, wasn't he? I think I saw that he.
Yeah, he was on with Jessica and the Cryptid Huntress. So, yeah, Jessica does a great job. She gets all the good guests. World. She just, I don't know where she gets them from.
Well, believe me, I'm going to be sending, and not that you have to just because I've sent them to you, but I think that you will find them very, very interesting. So they've had experiences and stuff like that. And yeah.
And let's see, we got about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Woo-hoo. I was surprised at how many international people we had in the room tonight when you were on the show.
There was a lot.
Yeah, there Australia, Japan, there was somebody from the UK. I mean, there were several people that were from somewhere else.
We's international now.
That's right. International fame. That's right. There you go. Woohoo.
Mm-hmm. We just got to get you to Vegas now for our fan party.
Oh, thank you. I really would love to do that, but I wanted to do this book thing for you just to be nice. So.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I don't mind if ever in the future, if you've got some kind of a raffle thing or whatever you call it, where I don't mind donating, books if ever you need to. Just let me know.
Yeah, my sick and twisted friend Mark here feels like a good night to have breakfast for dinner. Yeah.
Yes.
No. It's never a good night to have breakfast for dinner. You horrible, horrible person.
Really? I like breakfast for dinner sometimes.
Well, you know what? We found your flaw.
Uh-oh. Well, I said sometimes, but yeah, steak and eggs. Yeah, sure. Why not have a porterhouse with eggs?
Nope. There's a reason why they call breakfast food.
Oh yeah. Break fast. Yeah.
All right. Thank you to Scowling Greg O'Brien, Sweet Donnie Cho, Free Your Mind, Derek, Jenny, and Human Carl for the amazing super chats. We love the support, everyone. Thank you so much. Here comes the second half hour. Second half hour, Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are. this beautiful planet we call Earth. Even to my cousin Bob Vila in Las Vegas, hanging on out, watching at home right now. Hey, want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Continuing on with our show tonight with author, researcher, experiencer Lynn Monet, talking near-death experiences. And Lynn, you know, a lot of people who have these experiences, they come back with a whole new zest of life, you know, whether it's quitting bad habits, whether it's, you know, if they were a jerk in life, they immediately switch to being more forgiving and patient. What goes on in a near-death experience that really seems to change people?
You know, they have part of their life review, and the thing about the life review is that you're not judged. You judge yourself. And if you think about it, that's really more effective, because if you have like an angel or a heavenly being standing there, which there is one with you, saying to you, you were naughty at that moment, you're rationalizing in your head all the reasons why you did it. You're not owning it. So when you have to judge yourself and you're put in the shoes of the person that you bullied, or that you were nasty with, or even animals count, the animal that you left unfed, or that you mistreated in the woods or something like that. All of that counts, because you're brought back to that moment where you are put in the shoes of the person and made to feel the rippling effect, not only for that moment of what you did, but the rippling effect throughout their lifetime. And when that happens, you have to own what you did. And it is not pleasant. And a lot of times people, when they do come back in after experiencing and seeing, what they've done, they're very, very eager to make an amends and to correct some of that behavior. That way, my father is a prime example of that. So he's definitely an example of someone that went through that. And I don't know if I've shared that story before, but I'll be happy to share it tonight if you want me to.
Yeah, share it. We'd love to hear it.
My father, he was a very, very intelligent man. He was a math professor. He also had a degree in chemistry, and he was this brilliant, very smart man. He was a World War II paratrooper medic. So he was jumping out in the middle of the field dealing with people that were, dying, and giving them as, help as he could. But he was a very difficult man, and he drank because of some of his post-traumatic stress, and he was an angry drunk. So he was a very, very difficult man, and actually an abusive man in some cases. And so he had gone to the doctor for his yearly physical. He was about 69 years old, almost 70. And he had, when they looked into his eyes, they noticed that there was a bulging vein, which where the vein was, it was indicative of a clot, something occluding a major vessel somewhere was indicated by that. So they sent him across the street to the hospital to have some tests done. And lo and behold, he did have a very large, quickly moving clot that if he hadn't gotten to the doctor that day and been sent to the emergency room and to the hospital, probably would have been dead within 12 to 24 hours, definitely with a massive stroke. But since they were able to find it, they knew that that they would not be able to dissolve it in time. So they actually had to take him to surgery and remove the clot manually through surgery. So he actually made it through the surgery, got to the recovery room, and he's laying there, and the nurse is getting ready to give him a morphine injection through his IV for pain. And he sees her going to put the needle into the adapter to give it into the main line. And he said that this voice came over him and said, "No, don't do that. Don't take that." So he verbalized what he was hearing. And of course, the nurse immediately, she's like, "What? This is your pain medicine. You don't want it." But it was too late. She had already put it in. And he said that that at first everything just went black, and that he felt himself floating out of his body. He said that when he got to the ceiling, he was able to turn around and look down upon his body. He could see the crash carts coming in. He said the thing that he remembers mostly is instead of calling code blue at that time, they were using code words so that, when visitors are in there, they, don't know that there's a code blue in such and such a room. So their code word was make a pizza. So he hears them calling make a pizza, and all of these crash carts are coming in, and he's watching. And then he starts to float through the ceiling and turned around. And he said that he was in this tunnel, that it was like a tunnel, that it was kind of dark, but there were glistening gold stars, like 10 times what we have in the sky. They was glistening like that. He was aware of people that were also in the distance kind of floating as he was. And he said that in that moment that he was able to be 6 places simultaneously. So he had 6 children. My sister had already passed away at that point. He did get to see her briefly. However, he didn't get to communicate with her because since he wasn't going to continue to cross over, some of that telepathy was not there in the way that it would have been if he had crossed over completely. So, but he did get to see her. So as he continued up through the tunnel, he was then with each of his children, his remaining children, and his new wife. So there were 5 of us left, and there was one particular shirt that I had that was my favorite shirt. Now, I was living in a different state, so he had never seen that shirt before. And when he came back, actually told me that he was standing next to me at that time and told me the shirt that I had on, and he was correct. But what he had mentioned is that he actually had a choice to continue over or to come back, which obviously he chose to come back. He was with each of his children, his 5 remaining children. And he said that he knew that in that moment that each one of us would be okay if he chose to cross over. However, he had just gotten married 6 months earlier to a lady from Russia who didn't even know how to drive. She didn't know how to balance a checkbook, which they did back then. There were so many things that he needed to complete with her so that she wouldn't be just stranded here in a country, that wasn't even her country. And so he decided to come back. But what he had said is that as he continued up, that there was this beautiful being that he didn't recognize from this lifetime, but it was someone that was familiar from the other side. He went ahead and he continued on with them, and they did go in to do his life review. And he started to, he mentioned where the records are kept, and that when you go into this beautiful large room, he said it almost looked like they had alabaster ceilings and things, and there were no seams on things, the way that they were put together, and the light was luminous as if it illuminated from within the walls, even in the air for that matter. And he said that as he went down in this hallway, there were like cubbies on both sides of the walls. Some of them had veils over them and other ones did not. And when he asked what those were, the ones with the veils still over them were missed opportunities. So things that he could have taken to make his life easier. But during his life review, when he was made to look at all of the horrible things that he had done and hurting people, his children, his ex-wife, he had a couple of marriages, but all of them, being mean to the dog, all of those sorts of things. When he came back, he was a very, very changed man. He had been a raging alcoholic up until that point in time. He had started drinking and when he was like 15 years old. So he'd been, doing that for a long time. He immediately quit, immediately stopped drinking, cold turkey. He even had a few beers in his house just for souvenirs, but he didn't touch them. He ended up finally giving them away to somebody because he wasn't drinking them. And he went back to his ex-wives and apologized, and to his children. I mean, he came even to me and he told me, he said, I know that I haven't been the best father in the sense of, nurturing. I have provided well for you, but in the sense of nurturing, I have not been the best father, but I did the best that I knew how and that I could. And I'm sorry, for anything that I did. And of course we made amends, and he ended up, when he lived 11 more years, he actually passed away when he was like 90 something, and he wanted to live to 100, but he ended up passing away at 90 something. But the thing was, is he lived out those last 10 years as this very, very, very sweet, very humble, kind man. And this man was a tyrant before that. I mean, he was not an easy man, but he was a precious man by the time he came to that point. But because also, as I mentioned, his feeling of discomfort with emotions, part of that because of the generation that he grew up in, and also being a soldier and also having some post-traumatic stress, he did end up, as I mentioned, when his time came to wanting to pass away alone, when he finally decided to cross over. So, but again, he had that 10 or 11 year gap in between. I'm going to do this. Okay. So,
I think that's amazing. I mean, to see somebody change wholeheartedly. I mean, there's also the famous story of Danny and Brinkley, who was
yes,
who was a veteran. He was known as a bully. He was, he wasn't a hitman, so to speak, but
he
he
was a
went
Navy SEAL. Wasn't
he
he a
went
Navy SEAL?
something like that. But
Yeah.
he went and did the dirty work for a lot of dirty people, and a
Yes.
lot of people, wanted to put a gun to his head and end him. And then when he was struck by lightning, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and he had those near death experiences, and he woke up to the fact that that isn't what life is about. And he actually went back to all the people that he used to bully and
Mhm.
cast aspersions to, and apologized to each and every one of them. The
Yes,
majority
he
of them
did.
accepted. And I mean, it's just amazing to see how this near death experience can bring the toughest person down to a human level again. Because so
Yes.
many times in society we see it, where if somebody's got money, or somebody's got, you know, uh, a body, a muscle bound body, that they bully you with finances, or they bully you with their muscles and their strength, or
Hmm.
their mind, or whatever it may be, or their quick mouth. And yet here we are having these experiences, and they come back, and it's like they've seen all of that pain and suffering that they have caused to people, and it's quite a, uh, lack of a better term, punch in the gut for a lot
Yes.
of these people.
Yes, and it's animals too. It's animals too. So you got to be nice to your fur babies, because that will also come back. You review them as well. So yeah, definitely. The thing is too, is Danny and Brinkley actually had an additional recently, like in the last year or two, where he had gone in for a bypass surgery, I believe, something to do with his heart. And because they have pictures of him hugging the heart after that surgery, so that when they cough, they can cling to it. And he, as a matter of fact, when he came back this last time, he said that the thing that was most profound for him was, he was, even after all of those things he learned, all of those near death experiences, he learned things. But the one that really, really, as you said, kicked him in the gut was the last one, because he was driving to a party, and even though he had learned new ways with things, he hit a dog, and he remembers thinking to himself that, oh, should I stop for the dog? No, the dog's already dead. And he just continued on to this party. But he said that in his life review that last time, that he was brought back to that moment that he hit the dog, and had to feel the effects of the dog having to die alone in pain, that way, that really, really brought him to his knees, and he got, even more from it. And he said too, he comes back and he's hugging more people, and people are starting to notice, oh, Danny, why are you, you seem to be such a hugger now all of a sudden. He's like, I'm not hugging you, I'm hugging me, because when I get on the other side, all of these hugs that I've given to people come back to me, and I get that feel good feeling. So touch is so important. And a loving touch is so important as well, because all of those things do come back to you.
Is it karma, or is karma just the favorite term, the easiest term for us to use in order to describe what's going on?
Karma, we do have some things that we have to make up. And karma is just a general term that they do use for that. Um, There was a for instance that I had that has just slipped my mind. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to have it come back as far as the karma things. Even like for instance with things like suicide. When people take their life early, they're brought up in front of a board, and so are people with karma that are brought in front of like this board thing too. And they all of the beings that are sitting there are kind of like, where do you think you could have done a little bit better with this kind of thing? And then they're often sent right back into to complete. Sometimes they're walk-ins. They're not born and then having to live through all that. They might trade places with somebody and come in and finish. If that person's also at a similar point, sometimes they are reborn back in. But people talk about karma, that way, like if somebody shot somebody and now, we all think that something's terrible because maybe that person shot another person. So, but it's kind of a general, more of a general term. I don't even know if I explained that well enough, but yeah, you don't get judged on the other side, even when you have done bad. You judge yourself, and you're made to look at the situation that way. So I'm not really for sure how the karma thing works as we know it, because I've heard so many things, and I've also been in touch with my parents who are like, well, we judge ourselves. So it just, yeah.
I want to ask you, as we got about 6 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Author Lynn Monet is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. The idea that when we have this near-death experience, are we going through a life review at that point, or are we just getting ready to fly off into the stars? What happens?
As you leave your body, as my father had mentioned, that he was in a tunnel. A lot of times you'll hear people talk about the tunnel that they're in with the glistening lights, the feeling of warmth and love and elation that you feel that makes you hungry to even continue on that way. Sometimes you'll hear people talk about going over a bridge, into a garden. It's always like one of three different ways, like the bridge garden thing or the tunnel thing. And then there's one other thing too with a path that one of those three things are usually the ways that they see it as the near-death experience, that they're starting to transition upward. But they do meet with a guide that will then take them forward and start the life review. The life review is literally like a panoramic view for them, and it goes actually very quickly for them on the other side, because time is different on the other side than it is here. I mean, here it would probably seem like days, but over there it seems like seconds, and they're going through all of those different things that they did in detail. So yeah, and then with the near-death experience, it's sometimes too they have the choice to return or to stay. If it's they can choose to come back, and a lot of them do choose to come back after that life review so that they can make amends.
Yet I've heard that so many have choose to come back, but they also state that they want to go back as quickly as possible because it was so awesome.
Yes. My dad had said too, the feeling of elation. And I've experienced that with people crossing. When my mother crossed and I watched her cross over, that feeling of love and elation is just not even describable in words that we have or feelings that we have. Nothing touches it, but it's just such a warm, nurturing, fulfilling, there just aren't words to describe it. It's just something that you've longed for, that you've missed, and you didn't realize that you did until you reconnect with it. And then you don't want to be away from it anymore, if even that makes sense.
What about those who don't have a good experience, where they're seeing the darkness, where they're seeing the not so good side of the near-death experience? Or they're trapped in a purgatory, so to speak.
Well, they do. That does happen. And with the near-death experience, they're not trapped, but they are brought down to that level sometimes for a reason. Maybe they need to have the proverbial, scared out of them to, scared straight kind of thing. so that they can see where they're going. And the thing about it is too, is when people go into those lower levels during their near-death experiences, they will see relatives, but the relatives are held back from them. They're not allowed to communicate with them or anything like that. And one will come forward also and say that it's their time or not their time. But I can promise you that a lot of those people that do go into those lower levels, that's all it takes for them to change their ways a lot of times when they come back, because, you know, it's a very, very scary thing. A lot of people have talked about seeing the devil come up out of a hole and what he looked like, you know. So yeah, it just it definitely will scare you straight, you know, to know that you could possibly go there.
What if you don't believe in it? Like, what if you're quite agnostic or atheist? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. You know, people, somebody had even asked too, and this is I will get back to answering that, but somebody was asking me the other night on a show about angels. Do you have to have religion to have angels? Angels have nothing to do with religion. They just are. You know what I'm saying? So, and with what, I'm sorry, please ask me that again. I want to make sure that I'm answering it correctly.
Just in regards to people who are agnostic or atheist or believe the Toronto Maple Leafs will actually win a Stanley Cup in their lifetime. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we don't. Those are people that are, you know, that think differently than those who have a spiritual side to them.
That is true, but you know what, they have a change of heart, because if the facts are is that there is a spiritual life on the other side, and sometimes when their time comes to cross, instead of sending in people, they'll send in a pet. You know, maybe a favorite pet that has crossed over, and that will draw the person more so than, you know, sending in the angels. But once the pet comes in, because usually the pets come second, you have your whole time alone with your pets, you've got your time with your people, because it would be a little bit overwhelming, and you want to have that time with your pets to reconnect. But you know, with somebody like that, sometimes they do have another form to go in and draw them out of their body. And once they've crossed over out of their body by even following a dog home, you know, a spirit dog home, they have a change of heart, because then the reality hits. I mean, there it all is in front of you, so you can't deny it.
Even those who are in such disbelief that they wouldn't believe it if it was happening right in front of them.
You
like,
know,
is that where the change of heart happens? It's we got about 45 seconds.
You know, even it is happening in front of. There's not only that, the feeling and the energy that they connect with, they just have an understanding at that point.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. When we come back from the break here at the top of the hour, we are going to get into more NDEs, how it ties into the paranormal, how it ties into the supernatural, how it ties into how Lynn Monet's hair looks absolutely model-esque tonight.
Oh, thank you so much.
Commenting on the hair, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you. And don't forget to mention the books. Please let people know so that they can give you.
Where can they find your books?
Okay, at www.lynnmonet.com. However, tonight, ebook only, not paperback. I'll tell them when you come back.
Awesome. Lynn Monet, everybody. LynnMonet.com. Get her books. It's going to be awesome. We'll be back with the second hour of Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned. Awesomeness.
I'm sorry, my mouth was getting dry, so my tongue was sticking. So I'm like, I'm not made of that making sense.
Oh, no worries. No worries. I'm just going to we got about 6 minutes here. I'm just going to quickly step away, and I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay. Well, while you're stepping away, I'll mention the book deal.
Again, okay. You go ahead. You run your infomercial. I'll be right back.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Tonight, during this time that I am on the show, the 2 hours that I'm actively on the show, anybody that wants to come forward with a donation of $25 or more gets a free ebook of mine of their choice. I have the Omnipresent book, which is going to end up being a 5-part series, which is Omnipresent, which is a story about a house that I purchased as a single mother, unbeknownst to me, that was so haunted that I was never able to move into it. The second book follows up, it's called What Happened Next. It has to do with what happened to the people that I sold the house to. And yes, I did try to tell them. I didn't just try to stick them with the house, but they didn't want to hear it. As well as that I got a hold of the people that sold me the house and what was happening to their children while they were in the house. And then it goes into talking about addiction, mental illness, and those sorts of things, and attachments that cause pain also. Then there's a third book in that series that, as I said, is going to end up being 5. It's called 111 Becadon Drive. That book is currently in editing. I'm also putting that one out here, so you could end up getting it before it's even out in paperback book. But it's a story about a ghosts that were going in a townhouse building side by side. They were going from townhouse to townhouse through the walls, entering into women's bedrooms and actually crawling in bed with them. I actually have a picture of that ghost. It's the first one that I've ever seen naked. And ironically, he's covering himself in front. It was kind of a joke because it's like you can go and crawl in bed with all of these people and tamper with their underwear, but yet now that I'm going to take you a picture of you and you're exposed, you're going to be modest by covering your man stuff. So the picture shows that. It's very, very clear. Most everybody can see that. But that is what that book is about. And then Colors of Heaven, which is one of my new releases, is a story about heaven and the act of transitioning from dying into death and into the afterlife. It's a beautiful story for anybody who has someone who has been recently diagnosed with a terminal illness or that has lost someone, to kind of bring that comfort and also hopefully to help take the stigma of death and dying away. As I had mentioned too, there's a self-help in the self-help section in the back that can help you at that time to say, at a time that you're under stress and strain and you're suffering, from your loss, so that you don't get taken advantage of. And if you have this information ahead of time, you will be less apt to be taken advantage of. Then I also have the book, The Gap, as I had made mention. It is it's a book about adolescents and teens, this new gender thing that's going on, to try to explain that a little bit more. It talks about that it's okay, but it also talks about the fact that it's okay to be what you're born to. So I think that needs to be conveyed as well as if you choose to be something different. All of it is good. We've kind of focused so much on the other new now that we aren't really focusing on the fact that it's also okay to be who you are. It also talks about not going out on a date with stinky sneakers, because I don't care how attractive you are or handsome you are. If you're stuck in a seat sitting next to a guy with stinky sneakers, it's not attractive. So it mentions that. It also talks about what to do if a condom breaks. And it's not that it's encouraging sex. It actually helps the young adolescents and teens set healthy boundaries. It also tells them what to say in situations, and that's part of it. They're in these peer groups. They want to be liked. They don't want, to anger somebody. So they really don't know how to talk about their boundaries. Like saying to somebody, this is, hey, I want to borrow money. And they're like, I can't loan you the money, but is there something else I can, help you with? So it's a really, really good book. It even talks about in the back about doing laundry and, what do you do if you get a red towel in with your white towels and they all turn pink? You don't put them in the dryer. You take the red towel out and wash them again, sometimes twice, and they'll come back white. So there are tools for your adolescent and teen in that book. So all of those are available in ebook. So that's ebook. If you want the paperback version, I'm going to be getting the hardback covers also coming out pretty soon. Then you'll need to get those from my website, www.lynnmonet.com. This special donation thing is for the ebook only. So, and during this 2 hours while I'm on.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. You're too kind to our audience.
Oh, no, I love your audience. They're kind to me. I feel honored to be here. So thank you.
We love you. We love you around here. We do.
Where's Sturdy Filth tonight? I was looking forward to seeing his drawings. Is he on vacation or something?
No, a lot of times he goes to art class or he's working late. He's always trying to, uh, take time away from us. Weirdo.
Well, you tell him that Lynn Monet said hello, and I hope that his new baby kitties that he and Mrs. Filth have, that they're doing well.
Oh, they're loving him. They're loving him.
I'm glad. I'm going to go ahead and take my earplugs out because I've got to plug in
Sure.
my battery things going here.
No problem. You do that. Are your books available in audio format?
You know what? I'm getting ready to do that. So many people have asked to do that. I'm actually investigating right now how to do that. And of course, if
One second, Lynn. 1 second.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Lamella. Lamella is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with author, researcher, experiencer Lynn Monet. LynnMonet.com is her website. If you want to check it on out, highly suggest you do. We're talking near-death experiences tonight. And Lynn, we got a few questions here that we are going to put towards you. And we'll start off with Pixie Lara here, who is wondering about your books, whether or not they will be in audio format.
You know, I'm glad that you asked that. So many people have asked that, and I am actually checking into working on doing that. The thing about the audio format is that I prefer to read them myself with my own voice. So I'm going to have to find out through which source that I can do that and have that transmitted and be able to be sent to people so they can listen to it in their car, or somebody if they have any type of, like if they're blind or have any kind of reason for which they can't read, but they prefer hearing it even that way. So I am checking into that. They're not available yet at this time, but I'm hoping to, by the end of the year, to definitely have them in hardcover and audio format.
Awesome. Let's go over to Sweet Donnie Cho, who is asking, why do some murder victims become ghosts, but not all? Why do some who die of natural causes cross over, but not all?
Because they choose not to go. You have a choice when your time comes to cross over as to whether you want to cross over or not. And that's why a lot of times people that end up choosing not to cross over, a lot of times it's religion based because they don't feel worthy for some reason. I think I've told that story about Dapper Dan not wanting to cross over because his wife and mistress were on the other side. And, you know, a lot of times researchers and investigators run into these sorts of things with, like, the mafia guys in the bars who don't want to cross over either because they don't want to have to face their wives after being with their mistresses in these hotels that they're still haunting. So it is a choice. You do have a choice to cross over or not. Whether it's a murder, whether it's natural causes, you have that choice to cross over or not. Usually, of course, the ones that have done a murder, you know, they're more likely not to want to cross over, at least not immediately. You know, eventually, sometimes they do. But yeah, it's all about choice.
All right, let's continue on here. Let's go over to Jules. When your loved ones visit in dreams after death, why are some in the garden and others in what seems like a waiting room or facility of some sort?
You know, sometimes too, you have to, they're all in different places. they're all in different places. And I know that sometimes it may look like a facility, or a holding area, but they're all doing things. Like, for instance, you might see them in a garden, but also they may have, when they've crossed over and they've done their life review, they've noticed areas that they did not fulfill an obligation, or maybe perhaps they need to follow someone. So they actually have classrooms there that you do go through with some things to kind of educate. And a lot of times you'll follow a person on this earth. Like, for instance, maybe an alcoholic person that has passed away, crossed over, but never came to terms with his alcoholism or drug addiction, or her drug addiction before they crossed over. They'll then be placed to follow a human person. So a lot of times they are in places that look like facilities, or places that look like, rooms. I've actually had an out of body experience where I was up on a cloud. This wasn't a death thing, where I had an angel actually open the clouds for me, and I could look down upon the building that, again, these luminous opalescent looking walls without seams, and these gorgeous buildings. And there was this line of people. And the thing about the roofs is that you do have privacy, but as you lower in, you kind of become one with it and you go through it. So you could see the people standing in line, and the classroom with the areas where they were coming in to sit. They have furniture there that's kind of similar to ours in some ways, if that makes sense. They talk about the homes on the other side, but also you might notice them in like a holding area because they're waiting to go somewhere else. Heaven, once you've gone through your life review, we do have homes there, but you don't have to. You can choose to stay there. You don't have to. A lot of times heaven kind of turns into like an airport, and people are then, once they've completed schooling and their life review, they're then going off in different directions, different galaxies, different places, and to do different things. So that might be why you're seeing a difference, because they're doing different things.
Do you have a choice when you're on the other side on reincarnating or not?
Sometimes. Like, for instance, most of us right now, like you, because of the gifts you have, so it's very obvious, and like me and a lot of other people, most of the people in this room are incarnates. Incarnates mean that we didn't have to reincarnate. We chose to reincarnate, and we chose to reincarnate to come back for a specific time and a specific deed to anchor, bear light, and to anchor light. And as I think you and I talked before the show started, there's something going down in the atmosphere. I can feel it. So many empaths can feel it. I'm sure you can feel it. Something big's going to shift here. And I really believe that it's between now and the end of the year that something could change for the better. I hope it may not seem for the better at first, but it will end up being for the better. But the thing is the people that reincarnate are people that have things that are not completed. They haven't advanced quite to that level where they can make that choice. An incarnate can choose whether they want to come back or not, because they've completed those goals up to that point where they don't have to come back unless they want to. So, and I say to people, there's no way I'm coming back. But you know what? Obviously I did. And maybe I said that before too, but here we all are again. So, and we're all also coming together to become a collective consciousness.
Let's go back to Sweet Donnie Cho.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between a negatively aligned ghost and an actual demon?
Oh, there's a huge difference. A ghost has been a human at one form of time. Usually, the way that I've learned that they are, ghosts can be animals and stuff too, but when you're talking about a human kind of thing, a ghost has been a human in a body that has lived on this earth, and a demon has not. So demons are on this earth. They're, people let them in accidentally through portals. They attach to people. They create havoc, not only in people that are embodied, but also for spirits that are lost souls and wandering as well. They also can pose as something harmless, just so that you don't kick it out of its house, have you kick them out of your house. So, you need to be careful about that as well. When you're talking to a ghost, or even like and to shift from the negative to the positive. Like, for instance, if you communicate with your family on the other side, or you channel your mother or something. There was a recent person that was talking on a show that was talking about the fact that they were in connection with their mother, and they would have these conversations with their mother, and then all of a sudden the mother in spirit form asked them to do something that they knew their mother would never ask them to do. And actually this was a demonologist talking about this. And what happened is they confronted that being that was appearing as their mother but was not. It was a demon mimicking the mother, or a negative spirit, type thing, it mimicking. So what the man ended up doing was to create a password with their mother that nobody else knew what it was. So when he continued into meditation or channeling of his mother after that fact, he would ask for the password and mentally would be given that. And if the password was correct, then he knew he had his mother. There were times that still there were beings that were approaching him that were negative, that were demonic, but when he would confront them and ask them the password and they didn't have it, and he would call them on it, they would kind of back off. So I thought that was interesting.
That's weird about the password thing, because it was always believed that passwords were set up in order to try and make that contact, so what was going on. Yet with Harry Houdini, nobody has ever heard his password.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that's something that you kind of connect up with telepathically. You don't want to speak your password because they can hear you. So you don't want some other soul that's looking to mimic. I mean, when you talk about demons, they have an intelligence about them. I mean, I remember even going the first day into that house that I bought. Within 6 hours, I was cooking a dinner, and my daughter comes to the kitchen asking me what I wanted. And my son then comes in and says that he heard me too. So within that 6 hours, they learned that I was the mommy lady, that my daughter was Brittany, my son was Austin, and how to mimic my voice. So even in spirit, to kind of derail people, they will sometimes show up as a little girl or a child, something that appears harmless, in order to be able to stay around you or in your home. And you'll think, oh, it's just a little old lady ghost that we have here. And it may not be just a little old lady ghost. And even when sometimes they'll pose as someone familiar, like a parent or a child or a sibling that is crossed over, and they present as that. So they're very tricky. And if you are channeling with somebody, you need to make sure that you're talking to the person that you want to.
How can you tell, though, with all the people who use every sort of communication, whether it's Ouija boards, tea leaves, tarot cards, intuition, how can you tell you're actually talking to who you need to talk to?
When a demon embodies either in a spiritual form or into an embodiment, there's always there's always an imperfection about it that you would catch. Like, for instance, they may look just like your mother, but then you'll notice that there are no whites to their eyes, or you'll notice that they have 6 fingers versus 5. So there's always one distinct flaw. They can look exactly the same, but you need to look for that, to make sure that flaw is not there. And it's usually something that's noticeable enough, like I said, a 6th finger, or the eyeball being black, or maybe, something about their mouth. They may not have like the what do they call this, the angel's kiss or something right here, but there is something about them because they want to appear, but since they can't totally be part of that, they do show up with an imperfection. And that's how you can tell the difference.
What if you're not seeing them?
Pardon me?
What if you're not seeing them, you're hearing them or communicating with them on a spirit board?
I have a tendency to avoid the spirit boards. I do. I've had bad experiences with those. Also, the automatic writing, where portals have been opened that I wasn't aware I was opening as a younger person and didn't know how to close. So things started coming in through there. But Again, that password thing. If you have some kind of a password set up and you do it telepathically with them, so that it can't be overheard. A lot of times, from what I understand, they can't necessarily read your mind like a ghost or like a demon type thing. They're very intelligent in watching every move you make. They can remember a story that you told years ago, and that's why they know how to tell the psychic, oh, well, this is what happened type thing. So, and I'm not saying the psychics are bad. There are a lot of wonderful, wonderful psychics, but the thing is they can be tricksters and you have to be really, really careful. So even whether you're talking to them, whether you're seeing them, type thing, you need to have some other form like an insurance policy to make sure that you're talking to the right, to the person or the spirit that you intend to be speaking with.
Makes sense. Let's go to another audience question. Let's head on over to T2E. Does your book happen to let someone you love know it's okay to let go to help them pass?
Does your book happen to let someone love that it's okay? My book does talk about the fact that it's important to let them know that they need to pass. Time on the other side is different. And a lot of times people that are in that transitioning phase they have some margin for movement there on the time of death. The time of death is not exactly stamped in. It is stamped in on the other side, but since the time frame on this earth versus the other side is different, there is that room where somebody, if they're waiting for a loved one to get there to say goodbye, to see them one last time, they can hang on for extra hours and that sort of thing. But it's very, very important to let the person know that it's okay for them to cross over. Sometimes grieving, and especially, it's okay to grieve. We all do suffer a loss when somebody passes away, but excessive grieving, like for 5 and 6 years, and you're still, so desperately missing that person, kind of anchors them here. It doesn't allow them to fully cross over. Even though they can be 6 places at once, there's still a portion of them stuck here, and they're very, very busy on the other side. And again, too, they're not dead. You're going to see them again someday. It's this thing called death is not permanent. So I hope that's what you meant.
What happens to those who take their own life?
With suicide in the case, and I'll say this, that the medically induced suicide does not count because they are coming up to the end of their contract. Death is coming anyway, so they're not killing themselves for selfish reasons. They're already going to be crossing over within a margin, a month to a week to whatever. So that is looked at completely different in heaven. It's not counted against them. But what happens with is when somebody, and also mental illness is taken into consideration and addiction if somebody's had an accidental overdose, or they have some very serious depression, maybe they have attachments, all of that is taken into consideration. However, when a person takes their life out of spite, like to get even with a boyfriend or a friend, or, I'll teach them, we'll see if they miss me in school. They're actually brought up in front of a board, so to speak, of several angels and things like that. And they will be brought back in their life review to that with this group, and they'll be asked what they could have done differently. And the soul will then have to acknowledge what they could have done differently. And then they are sent right back in. They don't have much time to linger there. If they do, they're kept in a holding area kind of a way. They don't get to see their loved ones on the other side. They're not rewarded for that behavior. And the thing is a lot of times when they're sent back in, so I'd mentioned sometimes there'll be a walk-in. Somebody has gotten to that point in those areas that I'd mentioned before about where they have the opportunity to exit other than a suicide, not counting that. They may trade places because now they have a body, or they may be born back into, and a lot of times you're born back into situations that are even worse than the ones are that you are in, for you to get back to that point and to not commit that suicide. So, yeah.
Okay, what about those? Are those who do commit this act? Do they see loved ones on the other side? are they greeted, or do they have to go through a little bit of punishment for ending things early? How does that work?
Ending things early is never, ever, ever something that is, well, and again, with the exception of mental illness or, so an accidental drug overdose. It is seen as such a selfish act on the other side because it not only affects the people on this earth, it creates a rippling effect for generations to come throughout the universe. If someone has come in and agreed to have children, let's say the guy that's going to be the president of the United States, for instance, and they cut their life short before they have that child, and they've had this agreement with this child that they are going to come in and be born and be raised to become the president of the United States, that negates that. And that rippling effect of what a wonderful or terrible president he would have been, at that time, and how he would affect people is it's stymied. It's basically stopped. So suicide is never, ever, ever, ever an option under selfish purposes that way. So they're sent back, and it is frowned upon. They are not allowed to connect with their loved ones. On the other side, usually, like for instance, if somebody hangs themselves, they will actually linger in the area of the body before they go through a portal. One soul will connect with them. Usually it's not somebody that's familiar from this lifetime that they've just left it, but it will be a soul that is familiar to them from the other side. And they are then, placed through their life review. Sometimes they will have a little bit of schooling, like in the case of mental illness or addiction, and then they are placed back in the body to come back in.
Okay. We got about 90 seconds left. I'll get to Doug's question when we return from the break. But for people who do take their own lives, is there sympathy on the other side for the reason why they did it?
In the case of accidental drug overdose and in the case of mental illness or attachments, yes. In the case of someone who has done it out of selfish spite to get even, no. It's not that they're shamed for it either, because you judge yourself. And not only that, keep in mind too, that you can be 6 places at one time once you've crossed over. So a lot of times you'll talk to people, like if you have a psychic reading who talks about people that have committed suicide, and they'll come forward and say, I did it to myself. It was my responsibility. Again, that might be a person that was suffering from mental illness, because most people just don't automatically, do it that way. Usually there's a very, very severe mental illness or maybe drug issue that is involved with it that causes it to happen. But it's when one of those people, out of just selfish spite to get even with somebody, does it, no, they're definitely just sent right back in. It is not, it's not like the punishment is being sent back in. So, this life is not easy. So in that way, they're reprimanded and it's sent back in, but they are not sent to hell. They do not go to hell. So just in case anybody's wondering that.
All right. On that note, I'm going to get you to hold on for another few minutes here, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We are having a great time of learning knowledge about the paranormal, supernatural, near-death experiences, what happens when we die. Author Lynn Monet is here for us. LynnMonet.com is her website, so make sure you check it on out. Have some fun with us in the next half hour, as we got Lynn until the top of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. All right, we're clear.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my mouth was a little bit dry again, so I hope that I don't sound like a drunk person.
No, you sound perfect.
Thank you. I'm going to put this back in because I charged it up enough. So let's see here.
No worries.
Where's my thing? Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. All right. You put them back in for the last half an hour. I think I'm charged up enough. So.
Perfect.
Good. I know people have a lot of questions about suicide, but it's basically very, very simple, and they're categorized. But the thing that is that most people make the mistake of is thinking that a person goes to hell, and they don't. So.
All right. Hello, Donaldine. Sweet Donaldine, they call him. Dapper Donaldine. Dapper. Ouch. I always have fun with you on the air. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm enjoying this so much. I always enjoy being on with you. Our energy connects in such a way that it's like poof, you know what I'm saying? So the lights are definitely on. So it's always great to connect with you.
Oh, it's always fun, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It always is.
It's what we do.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Yay! Hi, Lunar Tina. Mm-hmm. It snowed here today.
Oh, really? Wow, it's April. How late is it usually? I mean, is this normal for Canada to snow this late?
Where I am, sometimes the weather's got to be a jerk, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, China needs to quit manipulating our weather, to be honest. We've had so much rain here, and it's not like rain, it's like that misting darkness that, is just kind of thick and you can cut it with a knife. So, and then when the skies are blue and clear, there are chemtrails all over it. So,
No.
They're going to get you one way or another. That's for sure. Woo-hoo.
90 seconds. Pardon my yawning. Pardon my yawning.
I'm trying not to do that. I've been up early since this morning, so I'm fading just a little tiny bit, but I'm good. So.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I love being on your show. You're like my favorite. Well, you are my favorite one because we have so much fun together. So.
You are way too kind.
And keep in mind, people, that book deal still stands. Free ebook of 5 choices of my books for $25 and over tonight during the 2 hours that I'm on the show. And that's for ebook only. Paperback and hardcover you can get from my website, www.lynnmonet.com.
Awesome. All right. Blue Pilled World. How are you, buddy? Lynn Monet is in South Dakota.
South Dakota.
Yeah. No, you're not in South Dakota.
No, I'm in South Carolina.
South Carolina. Oh,
Carolina. Woohoo.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Big thank you tonight to Sweet Donnie Cho ×4, Scowling Greg O'Brien, Human Carl, Jen A, Derek, and Free Your Mind. Very much appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. Very, very much appreciate it. Very much appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you very much. All right, here we go, my dear.
Okay.
We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Author, researcher, experiencer Lynn Monet is with us tonight as we are going over the near-death experience. And Lynn, I want to start off with a question from Doug here, the Doug Shelby, as he likes to be known as. And Lynn's phone just died. Just died. Just like that, she disappeared. She was intimidated by the Doug Shelby's question. Yeah, totally intimidated. And poof. There she goes. There she goes. We'll wait for Lynn to come back on here in a couple of seconds. But first, let us remind you that you have until April 15th. That is just 4 days away to confirm with us that you are going to be a VIP member at our second annual Las Vegas fan party, May 19th through 21st at the Golden Nugget Casino and Resort in Las Vegas. We want to see you all there. We have a great list of guests who are coming on in and hanging out with all of you. Many guests that you've heard on this show: Geraldine Orozco, Science Bob, Jim Goodall, Michael Schratt, Melinda Leslie, and from the documentary Hoodoo Tall, Jürgen Hess will be here. Damien J will be there. And Bigfoot Michigan Rob is going to be there, hanging on out, trying to steal all my money at the poker table. Misha Johnson's going to be there. The majority of our Spaced Out Radio team is going to be there as well as Random Guy. Yeah, he's going to show up, hang out, show us how it's done, Vegas style. So what are we going to be doing? Well, you got an experiencers group on the Friday afternoon. Friday evening, it's a VIP party with all of our special guests. On the Saturday, it is going to be a live YouTube show for like 6 hours, maybe 7 on our YouTube channel. It's going to be incredible. And Sunday, it's a free-for-all. Free-for-all. Do what you want. If you want to go home, you go home. If you don't want to go home and you want to hang out and party one last night, well, Kira gives it the thumbs up because Kira will be there. Yeah, she loves a good party on a Sunday afternoon with a daiquiri in hand and an umbrella in the other hand. Don't ask me why. Yep. She'll be betted on the racehorses, I can guarantee you. Guarantee that'll be happening. You know, there's Lynn Monet.
Sorry.
Was that your phone died? Your phone died?
Yes, you know why? Because I had it plugged into a charger and then realized that the charger, the extension cord wasn't plugged into the wall. So it did. And it does.
That happens.
I'm back.
That totally happens. All right. Let's see if we can get the question in from the Doug Shelby. But first, before we do that, I have to remind our listeners, if you want to come, go to our fan party. Let us know at spacedoutradio@gmail.com. spacedoutradio@gmail.com. All right, Doug, we're going to get to your question from the Doug Shelby. Hey there, Lynn. Thanks for being here tonight. Very interesting things to think about. By chance, what do you use to get your hair shiny like that? Because we've all wanted to know about your hair all night long.
Oh, I just shampoo it and condition it. That's all. I even use cheap shampoo. I use Suave. So my scalp, I'm allergic to a lot of shampoos that have like all those fancy perfumes and stuff. And the only one that I can use on my hair is a Suave shampoo and conditioner. My hair is has always been very shiny. I've been very lucky that way. So it's just, I guess, a hereditary thing.
Excellent. Well, your hair is beautiful.
Oh, thank you
Your
so
hair is
very much,
beautiful.
everybody. Thank you.
How do near-death experiences tie into the paranormal?
You know, that is a good question. Well, as far as the paranormal, I guess the ability to you know what, I don't know. Well, paranormal, of course, is everything that's like ghosts and spirits and things like that. But the near-death experience is a little bit different because they don't completely cross over. So they're not like, they don't like remain in a non-physical state. They like a lost soul would, that's life has ended, and then they end up haunting houses or, you know, bothering people. The near-death experience is different since they come back into an embodiment. So I'm not sure how to answer that one.
All right. Do you believe then that many of the ghosts that are still seen around here, that they're here by choice, or they are too chicken to cross over?
Both. They're too chicken to cross over, so therefore they choose not to cross over. So yeah, definitely. And not only that it's they're too chicken, a lot of times maybe a loved one will be caring for, let's say, an elderly parent, or maybe a child that has some special needs, and or an animal for that matter. You know, they are watching over these people or pets, and then all of a sudden, suddenly they pass away before the pet or the elderly parent, and they have a tendency sometimes to choose to linger to watch over the child or the parent or the pet, and then when the actual pet parent pass away, they get stuck here. The one that was watching over ends up getting stuck here and loses their way. And the thing is when you do see ghosts, a lot of times they are always looking forward, off to the side, or down. They're never looking up. And if you can just ask them to look up, the cord that they have, that we all have, that we're connected with, that kind of gets separated when a soul has been out of body and down here too soon, is just a matter of looking upwards to reconnect with it. And that's why if you have a lost soul in your home, or a spirit, and they are willing to cross over, you ask them to look up, and you'll almost watch them just poof instantly. Once they do that, they have a tendency to cross over. So yeah, you know, and also sometimes it's religious beliefs, and they don't feel worthy. So it can be a lot of different reasons that they, you know, sometimes choose not to.
I see that. So, does a ghost then have the opportunity to cross over whenever they like? Do they call for the light beam to come down and just say, "Hey, you know, it's time to check out of this Earth place"?
You know, it's that is an interesting question. I'm not quite sure, only for the reason being that the souls that I see that have left here have either chosen to stay here, or they've gotten stuck here, which is the situation where they lose the ability to look upward. So the longer that a soul is stuck on this earth, the harder it is to cross itself over. It needs assistance. And a lot of times too, they don't realize that they're dead. So you have to tell them that they're dead, you know, that they need to cross over because they're not supposed to be here anymore. So that all falls into play as well. The thing about spirits that have not crossed over is that they still have their addictions, they still have their mental illness, they still have the appearance of whatever the cause of death was, whether, you know, like if it's cancer or cirrhosis of the liver or something. Any type of corrosive thing has a Swiss cheese appearance. To if they have brain cancer or something, it will show that way. So those imperfections aren't taken away until they actually cross over. So yeah, you know, they're easy to detect that way as well. And I was actually going somewhere with that, and I'm just a little bit tired, so I kind of lost my train of thought. So I hope I answered that okay.
I think you did perfectly. You know, I know there are some ghosts out there, you know, that I've learned from my paranormal friends
Mhm.
who have ran into ghosts, whether they're priests or whether they are somebody else who have, a fear of being, how can we put it, a fear of crossing over because they don't believe that their sins will be forgiven, and whatever those sins may be. Is that why many of them dodge going over?
Yes, a lot of times they do dodge over. They don't feel worthy, and a lot of it is based on traditional religion. Some of the things that they've learned growing up as traditional religion of, like adultery or thou shalt not kill and those sorts of things. They have a tendency to stay here because they're afraid of again going to the proverbial hell, so to speak. I mean, there's such a fine line with traditional religion of you're either in hell and on earth or in heaven. It's like a Napoleon ice cream, Neapolitan ice cream, where you've got those three things, and you have that clear division between each of the flavors, so to speak. So yeah, I think so.
That is amazing. Amazing. So when you go up and let's say you are done with this life and you're going to make the next one happen, do you get a choice? Can you become an alien, a tiger, a butterfly, a frog on a lily pad, a big tree, or do you have to come back as another human incarnate?
No, you can choose to come back as an alien or something else sometimes. Yeah. I mean, and again, it depends on what you're coming back in for. Like the incarnate can choose to come back or not, and they can come and choose to come back as, usually they come back as human or alien, type thing, more so than a bug, for instance. Nobody wants to come in as a roach or something like that. But I have also heard where pets sometimes can come in because a loved one wants to be incarnated in a life with another person that's come here, but there's not a vessel, for it to come in as a human. So sometimes a pet will come in, but usually the pets stay with the pets and the humans stay with the humans. But yeah, I mean, you talk about fairies and things like that too. So, and people have said that that somehow we're also even related to like butterflies, so to speak. So I've recently talked to somebody about that and was started to learn about that too. So
Do you believe there is a paranormal extraterrestrial connection somehow?
yes. Yeah, it's all, I mean, everything, it's all connected. The higher consciousness is connected. Paranormal is kind of a blanket term, and paranormal can be the light side of paranormal, which is the angels and loved ones and people that are out of body, and the dark side of paranormal, which is, the ghosts and the demons and the dark shadow people, and the aliens kind of fall in that stigma of darkness as well, because the people are afraid of them. They do exist. They are also on the other side. When my mother crossed over, there were these magnificent beings that did help come to have her cross over, that they were so tall, their heads were actually skimming on the ceiling, and they were magnificent. And they definitely looked to be from somewhere else. I didn't see any of the bug-looking types over there, but they're the more humanoid types over there. So, it depends on which category you put it in. But yes, everything is connected, all of it.
When we are, let's go back to near death here for a second.
Okay.
Okay. Because when we are preparing for our own, like many people do get that opportunity to know that, okay, due to my health or due to my age, things are going to happen at a certain time.
Mhm.
And, time is running out and you start preparing. Should people really prepare for communication from the afterlife?
It's funny that you would ask that. Yes, it is a good idea to do that, because you can do that through meditation and things like that, where you kind of open up those fields. But the funny thing is that if you're a person that has a very foul mouth, just because you're in heaven and you're approached maybe by Jesus or somebody like that, even though your mouth is not running, you're thinking it, he's hearing it because your thoughts go out like a megaphone. So it is a good idea to certain behaviors that you would find embarrassing in front of an angel or in front of Jesus or your mother on the other side, you kind of want to start to get in check before you cross over so that you're not embarrassing yourself, because everything that you think, as I said, is like a megaphone that goes out, because they communicate through telepathy. They think of things like if they want to go somewhere and they just go. People think of them, they come, or they think of people and they also come. So everyone can hear your thoughts go out like a megaphone into the atmosphere. So nothing's private over there.
I want to ask you in regards to communication from the other side. Is it easy? Is it difficult? Like, say, for instance, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I had a listener back in February. It was the 1-year anniversary of his passing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was from the Netherlands, and he was 43 years old, and he requested doctor-assisted care.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back to our chat room. Ethereal Aura was his name
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube. And he came back to our chat room to say goodbye to everybody.
Oh.
And we spent, it was him and his dad in his hospital room, and we spent an hour with him. And then he finally said, you know what, guys, I got to go. Family is coming in to say goodbye. He had some major, major health problems, and he chose to, end his life humanely. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yes.
So I put a sticky note in my guitar, and it used to be straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, when you're ready,
You moved it. Yeah.
move it. And about 3-4 months later,
Mm-hmm.
he moved it.
Yes.
And so how long, this leads to Human Carl's question here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, because we never want to get him misconstrued with Alien Carl. He is asking, how long after one passes can they be contacted?
It depends on the person. A lot of times it can be immediate. It also depends on how ready you are to contact it. A lot of times, on the other side, because their vibration is much higher than ours, if you're still in that stage of grieving, any way that they would come into you or near you would amplify that. So whether it's a good, happy emotion or a more negative emotion, they're amplifiers, and they have a tendency to hold back sometimes a little bit more, peering in from a distance, so as not to increase your agony at that time, or your sorrow. So if you are the kind of person that you're okay with death, you're okay that the person has crossed over. I personally did not grieve my mother's loss, because to me, she's not dead. She's still very much around me. And I connected with her almost within days of her crossing over. But if you are someone that you have more of that grieving process to finish, a lot of times people say, well, how come I can't see them? Or how come I can't hear them? Or how come when I talk to them, they don't come? And it's because you're not quite emotionally ready to receive them or have them come in close to you without, creating that negative, not intentionally negative, but that amplification of whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment. So they don't want you to, to go from sadness into a depression kind of thing.
Okay, so because there are some people out there in the paranormal world who
Mhm.
believe that the best time to contact a spirit is within the first 24 hours, or as close to the time of death as possible.
You can. There was one patient of mine named Abigail that actually, when she passed over, I didn't even know she had crossed. She knew that she was crossing the next day, because she told me that her parents were coming to get her. But I remembered around 10:30 that night, I hear her saying to me, I made it home. So, but again, her making it home because I wasn't emotionally disturbed by the fact that she was crossing over, she was able to connect with me. So really it's a personal preference, and sometimes they will respond and sometimes they won't. I mean, I know that some people feel that it should be within the first 24 hours, but a lot of times people, more than most, I've heard them say, why can't I contact with them? I've done this, and this, and I'm not receiving any, contact back from them. But it's because they kind of stand back to not amplify a situation, that maybe where there's some suffering or sadness, going on.
How do we turn that frown upside down then?
That's right. I mean, you can reach out to them within 24 hours, but you may not get a response. So
can we trigger that response?
Yeah, by asking them to come. Is that what you mean? I mean, they are always waiting in the periphery to help us, but again, right after that death period, if, like, for instance, if you're in a fight with your husband or your wife, and you're going to the bathroom, you're like, Mom, come in and help me, you've got to help me settle this. They kind of have to do it from afar. They don't come in because they don't want to amplify the arguing and fighting. So they might send in a distraction, like they'll have all of a sudden have the kid from next door come over and knock on the door so that the fight doesn't continue to escalate, if that makes sense. They use outer things. Sometimes I had a patient that was actively passing, and the person in the daughter in the room was very, very upset, but then a friend was sent in to help walk her out into another area so that the other family that wanted to engage with the loved one was able to. So sometimes there are people or different situations that are used to move the person that's feeling the emotion so that they can come closer and forward.
90 seconds to go here, Lynn, before we got to go to break at the top of the hour and say goodnight to you. I want to say a big thank you once again for having you on Spaced Out Radio. It is always a pleasure to bring you on and do our thing here with another great interview and great knowledge from yourself. Do me a favor, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Take the next minute to tell everybody where they can find your books, your podcast, everything.
Okay. www.lynnmonet.com is my website. Through there, you can also reach me via email. There is a contact area. I do answer all of my own emails. However, please be patient. Sometimes it'll take me a day or two to get to them. Also, I have a podcast of my own. It's Synchronicity with Lynn Monet. It's on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock for 2 hours from 8 to 10 p.m. Tuesdays. I'm also co-hosting on the last Sunday of every month with Journey Through the Gate, a paranormal podcast with Cisco Murdoch. I also sometimes, go in there an additional week. And those are places that you can see me on my page for my Lynn Monet page. You can also friend me on Facebook, and you can see my schedule of different shows that I'm doing in addition to my own. But like, for instance, me being on Tonight with Dave would be on there, so that if you want to follow me, that way you can do that.
Lynn Monet, everybody. Thank you so much, Lynn. We love you around here. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp. Then our good friend Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio will be here for the Cryptid Report. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Lynn Monet, everybody.
Thank you so much. I'm kind of babbling now at this point. I'm gonna go get in my jammies and crawl in and go to sleep for a little while. But thank you so very much for having me. It's always a pleasure. I send love and light to everybody. Thank you so much for the comments in the chat room. I really appreciate it. And everybody.
We love you, my dear. You take care.
Yeah, and let me know when whoever I send books to. All right, thanks.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Lynn Monet, everybody. We love her around here. I'll be right back. Going to take a break, and then we'll kick off hour number 3 next. Hold on. All right. I'm back. Good times with Lynn, man. She is just so down to earth. Friggin' love her. All right, we got about 30 seconds. Big thank you to Human Carl ×2, Sweet Donnie Cho ×4, Greg, Free Your Mind, Derek, and Jen A for the amazing super chats tonight. Really do appreciate your love and support. Really do. Third hour coming on up. And I got a hiccup. Wonderful.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Lamella. Lamella is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go once again, as it is that time of the night where we head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another spooky journey.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. This story starts in Penobscot, New Brunswick, Canada. During the start of COVID, I was laid off from my job as a dog groomer, so I boarded my horses at McLeod Brook Stables and worked as a stable hand. Cleaned stalls, fed horses, blanketed them, turned them out, all that good stuff. The first experience happened one night, and it was pretty late. I was finishing up chores. My mom was with me this night because she would ride Sailor with me in the indoor ring while I was riding my own horse, too. I was feeding the horses. They stayed in at night because it was February, and our winter could be very, very brutal. When I finished, my mom was smoking outside in front of the barn. The next thing I knew, 2 horses came running into the barn like bats out of hell. They were in a run-in stall, which is a big stall with a door always open so they can come and go as they please. The 2 horses were very freaked out, scared looking even. Their eyes were wide and snorting. They were looking back outside. My mom came running through the main door. She said, "Did you hear that?" I said, "No, I didn't. What happened?" The horses came running scared. My mom told me she was out in front of the barn smoking. It suddenly went quiet, and she heard this god-awful scream, like a demonic pig squealing, just blood-curdling. She said it happened quite a few times in a very fast succession. I didn't quite hear it in the barn because I had a radio playing. I could tell she was scared though, and she was not messing around. Her eyes were big, and she was shaking and on edge. She was afraid and didn't want to go out to the car. I've known my mother my whole life, of course, and I've never seen her act like this over nothing. So we waited for some time before we got into my car. I turned on the headlights and shut the door. It was a calm night. No wind, not a sound to be heard. It was rather eerie. In my car, I got a nasty gut feeling something just wasn't right. My mom also was on edge and also had bad feelings. I began to yell about getting in the car and not getting out. I told her to lock all the doors, and she began to ask what was wrong, and I told her I don't know, I just had a bad feeling. She got in the car, shut the door, and I tried starting it, but the damn thing just wouldn't start. It was like the battery was dead. But I just got the battery changed, the oil changed, tires rotated, all that good stuff less than a month ago. I saw this elongated, white creature running out like an ape in front of my car. It had long fingers, and it was almost opaque. It freaked me out. I had a terrible, terrible gut feeling something was just not right. I looked at my mom and asked if she had seen it. She said, "No, I didn't. What do you think it was?" It was... I don't know how to describe it much more than that. I was pale and shaking. I pushed the start button on my car and it started with no problem all of a sudden. I started driving and told her what I saw, and I think she actually believed me. I tried researching it. I tried seeing if I could find anything close to what I saw that night. I did find something that did look somewhat close, and this creature was called the Rake. Now, I'm not even sure what the Rake is. I've seen some people say it's a creepypasta, other people say it's a variation of something like a skinwalker. But it looked exactly what I had seen. The hair on my neck and arms stood straight up when I saw that image online. I had to run downstairs to show my mom immediately, and when I showed her, she freaked out too. Now, the second incident happened about 2 days after seeing it. I decided to go for a trail ride on my horse, and it was sometime around 3 p.m. I was going to have a quick ride before getting my nighttime chores done. So I saddled up my horse and got ready to get on the trail. The trail that I wanted to go on was a trail that I had rode all the time. So I knew it like the back of my hand and felt very confident on it. It was warm for a winter day. The snow on the ground was still and solid. It was beautiful. When I trail ride, I like to look around and enjoy the scenery. We were coming up on a turn and my horse was looking at something that I couldn't quite find. Her ears were pinned straight forward, which meant something caught her attention. And I saw two white, pale, elongated creatures running across the trail about 40 feet before me. They were plain white, extended, had long claws, big, round, dark eyes, and gaping mouths, almost like a dark hole that would suck your soul. The closest thing I can even remotely describe this thing as was like those crazy gray aliens you see online all the time. It was just such an impossible maw to describe. They were running like apes in the woods. I could see them well because there were no leaves on the trees at this point because it was winter. I got this bad, almost sickening feeling in my stomach and I began to feel uneasy. I told my horse to go. She took off running past where they crossed the trail. We just kept running as fast as we could until we finally hit snow that we couldn't get through. I dodged tree branches, looking back to ensure nothing followed us because those things could run so terribly fast. Once we got far away from that part in the woods, I told her that she could settle down. I was shaking and freaked out beyond belief. I couldn't believe what I had seen. It was something out of this world, something cryptic. I've also been open to the paranormal, and I feel like I can see things most people can't. I have a gift, I guess, but I never thought I would see anything like this in a million years. A couple of weeks after seeing those creatures in the woods, Greg, the barn owner, was helping with chores. He was feeding, and I did hay and water top-ups for the night. The radio wasn't working, so it was hushed and rather quiet. I could only hear the horses eating. I fed the sheep, and Greg checked on the horses in the run-in stall. Then we heard this absolute terrifying scream come from outside. It sounded like a pig scream, but demonic, like I said before. Something an animal couldn't quite make. I had chills and goosebumps, and it creeped me out to the core. Greg told the kids, "Come on, let's get in the house now," and left in a hurry. He left me to finish the chores, so thanks, Greg, for leaving me alone out there. I wondered if he had heard this thing before, and maybe he just knew it wasn't necessarily super dangerous. After I finished my chores, I hurried to my car, and as I got in and headed home, far away from there, one of the weirdest experiences I ever had that would stick out from my mind had definitely been imprinted. I don't really know how to explain the story any further, and I definitely don't go out in the woods at night or at day without anyone with me. Thanks again, Swamp Dweller, for sharing my story, and honestly, I wonder if anybody in the comments has ever had a similar experience.
Oh, another freaky story by our main man, the Swamp Dweller. Swampy taking us on a journey each and every Monday through Friday night right here on Spaced Out Radio to kick off hour number 3. You can get thousands of stories just like that by going to youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads. Now, from the swamp to the mountainous hills of Montana, where lurking through the jungles of the deep forest woods is Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio and the Cryptid Report. Super Duke, the Cryptid Report with Super Duke. Super Duke for World Bigfoot Radio. It's always a good time to have you on tonight. How you been doing, man?
Ridiculously busy, and also I'm like physically beat up right now, so it's really hard to do all the things I have to do and keep up with the schedule, but so far maintaining it with the aid of aspirin and occasionally having to lie down and let my back quit spasming so I can get up and do something again. But everything's been super busy here, lots of stuff to announce. Had some bad news this morning. I was talking to the amazing super Sasquatcher Kelly Shaw, and he had one of his younger cousins in a car wreck last night and had so much damage to his cranium that he didn't survive it. So condolences to Kelly and his family. That's absolutely horrible. And like he said, you never know how long you're going to live. You could be dead tomorrow. You know, it's just because you're young doesn't mean you're going to be around for another 40 years. So make the best use of the time that you got. And with that, I'm trying to do that too. Here a week from now, I'm leaving to go on my big road trip over to Nebraska and speak at the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference and camp at the Nebraska Bigfoot Museum. Oh boy. No, I'm not staying at a hotel. I'm camping at the Bigfoot Museum. They've got an extra outbuilding that they've just converted into part of the museum. It's got like displays in it and stuff now, but it's not heated or anything. So I'm going to be throwing an air mattress down on the floor in that thing and sleeping in it. Oh, and guess who else gets to be bunkmate with me there? Blaine Tyler. Robin McCrae, Christy Sci-Fi, and a bunch of the other Bigfoot people will also be there, so it'll be absolutely hilarious. So yeah, our itinerary means that leaving a week from now, I won't be able to be on the show a week from now because I'll be in transit going there. Unfortunately, Robin doesn't fly until Wednesday, so she'll be covering the show next week. So you got Robin McCrae on here. And then on Thursday, I also, of course, I'll actually be Bigfooting in Nebraska on Thursday, so I won't be available Thursday night either. But somebody owes me a favor, and that person is Danielle Diva. So she'll be covering the Thursday Cryptid Report. And she owes me a favor because she can't be there for her show this Sunday, so I'm covering for her. I'll be on Spaced Out Radio After Hours this Sunday after my show airs. And what's my show? Well, my show is only the biggest show ever because this is the biggest person in Bigfooting, and nobody's been able to get her on a show in 10 damn years. Didn't matter how big it was or what radio network or TV show or movie producer. She told all of them to take a hike. And now she's coming back out into the public, and she's hitting my show first. She will be on this Sunday. Dr. Melba Ketchum, the author of the Ketchum Sasquatch Genome DNA Study. And she's doing another further study. She didn't even release all the information from the original study. That's still got to come out. And she's working on another one right now. And to make things even better, she's going to be on Dave's show next Tuesday. And after she's on, of course, the person filling in is also one of her friends, Robin McRae. So you guys really want to be around here next Tuesday. You do not want to miss this. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Dr. Ketchum is a genius and wrongly maligned and lied about in the media because she hit the nail dead on and everybody freaked out. Well, the DNA don't lie. Tough. Let's see. Other news. Let me think here for a second. I think that pretty close to covers it. Oh, yeah, a couple of video clips. The reason I was talking to Kelly is because I have to update my presentation for the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. And my idea of a presentation is I just show video of Bigfoot that we filmed. So I'm updating the one from last year, and two of the clips that I'm putting in there, Kelly's helping me with because he has the video wizardry to do so. In other words, he has an app that I don't. And all I can do with a thing that's off in the distance is just take a screen capture and crop it, and then show you the crop, which makes it look like it's closer, but it's not moving or anything. He actually has the program that can zoom in on the video while it's moving. So this is going to result in two short videos that I'm putting out this week. One is called Giant Sasquatch, right behind me. And you guys that want to see what a Sasquatch's face looks like, you'll enjoy this video because there's literally a giant Sasquatch right behind me. Bright daylight. I got him on camera, nice and in focus. And I don't know exactly how tall he is, but I'm guessing his nose is about the same size as my head. So he's really, really big. And the other one, Eric the Adventure Man, got by accident, where he was zooming around with his camera, and he actually got one on camera, didn't realize it. And as soon as he got it on camera, tried to duck behind a tree and hide. And he kept the camera in the same place and slowly zoomed back out again. And while he was zooming back out again, it looked around the tree to see if he was still watching it. So again, this is going to make for a pretty epic short piece of video. So you guys can look forward to those two things coming out on my channel this week. And then, of course, they will also be included in my presentation in Nebraska coming up this coming weekend. Robin McRae, Blaine Tyler, me, Stephen Hill, William Lunsford, Lyle Blackburn, Keith Crabtree. Tons of people you want to see. Don't miss it. Go ahead, Dave.
I got a question for you. Completely off topic, but we are in that time of year again up here in Canada where the snow starts to melt and people get ready to start going back into the forest, Duke, and make things happen for their own research and everything, which usually means at this time of year we get to hear from our good friend Todd Standing about everything to do with Bigfoot and his expeditions and how Bigfoot is real and who he's going to take to court and what government he's going to take to court this year. Look, I know that Todd Standing is not very well respected in the Bigfoot world. Okay. And he's a little bit of a pariah with everything that he's done. But why is this gentleman, for people who may not know, and try and be politically correct here because I know it'll be hard for you, okay? But why is this gentleman so disliked within this community?
Well, there's a bunch of... First of all, although he's not a bad guy, and let me get that out first, he's not a bad guy at all. He's a nice guy. He's very socially awkward. And the second thing that a lot of people don't want to believe that his evidence is real, including people that can get out in the woods and actually film them and seeing them sometimes, many times. They don't think some of his stuff is real. And I personally fall into that category. I think some of the stuff that he's got is absolutely 100% real, but some of it looks fake to me. And that's always a problem because, if you've got any evidence that can be proved as a fake, then that throws all your evidence in doubt and casts a big, long shadow across it. And again, I'm not going to point fingers and say any of his evidence is fake. Other people have kind of done that. Thinker Thunker did a little comparison on the face of Blinky to known human norms and to Sasquatch norms. And if you want to see what the results were, go check out the video on his channel.
But is is he getting, like, in how can I put this? With what has brought to the table this year, look, we know he has scared off a number of people. We know he scared off Dr. Jeff Meldrum. We know he scared off the late Dr. John Bindernagel. He had a pretty good thing that seemed to be going on with
Les Stroud.
And that seemed to fall by the wayside. And it's rumors galore on what is truly going on. But I mean, why is this guy such a pariah? What doesn't work? What isn't working for him?
Yeah, again, it's, I haven't actually met the guy. I've watched his shows a bunch of times and looked at his evidence and whatnot. And again, like I said, some of it, when I look at it, it definitely passes the sniff test. It's for real. And then others is like, very doubtful. So I don't know exactly. I mean, I can't speak for the guys that have had the actual interaction with him. One thing that always kind of surprises me is him going, I'm the guy that takes people out in the field to live interact with Bigfoot. Okay, well, you charge them $3,000 to take them out in the field and live interact with Bigfoot. Do you make them sign waivers? Do you make them sign non-disclosures? Do you do that kind of stuff? Why don't you ever have any of these people you took out in the field with you on your show talking about the experience, Todd? I don't make anybody I take out in the field sign a non-disclosure agreement. I don't make them sign waivers, and I don't charge them anything. And you know what? 99% of the time, they want to come on my show afterwards and show the evidence and talk about what happened while they were there, because things actually happened while they were there.
Right. I mean, I don't really like the fact that he's charging $3,000 to take people into the Canadian forest. You know what I'm saying?
Down in the U.S., you can't get away with that. If you try and charge somebody to tour them around any kind of nationally owned forest or anything like that, you have to have a permit to do it. And guess how easy they are to get? Not very frickin' easy. And they will go after your butt if you try and do it without one.
Yeah. See, up here, I believe it's a little bit different. But I mean, but on the flip side, this is a gentleman who has put his name on the record as coming out and challenging governments both in Canada and the United States about the protection of Sasquatch.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. Sasquatch are people, and they should be protected, and they should have some kind of rights, and then leave them alone. But who's Todd trying to them from? A bunch of half-drunk hillbillies? That they're not going to be able to hunt down a Bigfoot. Are you kidding me? They need protection from the government. That's who they need protection from. And the government's not going to give them protection from themselves. So why are you wasting your time doing this?
Well, I get that. But, I mean, at least he's brought a lot of information to the table regarding the protection of this creature. I mean, when you look where he's unsuccessfully tried to take the British Columbia provincial government to court, the Alberta government to court, California, Washington State. I mean, at least it's brought the topic into the discussion, which is more than what a lot of people have done, Duke.
Absolutely, and I give them credit for that, too. And it was interesting to note that up there in Canada, they just threw the case out of court and wouldn't even look at it. And down in California, where they have the ridiculous legal system, they filed it improperly. And I know all about that one because I actually had the person that was filing it, Claudia Ackley, on my show before anybody talked to her. Nobody in the U.S. or Canada had talked to her for 3 months after I had her on my show. They finally started paying attention. But yeah, she tried to sue California for recognition too, and they just, same thing, legalese. She got in with some law firm volunteered to help her, and they wrote up the case the wrong way and presented it in such a way that it could again be thrown out of court right away, and nobody would have to do anything with it.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, Duke. When we come back from the break here at the bottom of the hour, of course, we want to hear more of your great stories that you have collected on Sasquatch. Where are we going tonight? Just give us a little tease.
Well, we're going to go finish up where we were last time and fly way over the other side of the planet to that wonderful place that all the Americans wanted to visit in the 1960s, Vietnam. And we are going to talk about the rockinest thing in Vietnam, the rock! Fuck apes.
Oh, yes, our radio people will be checking their ears right after that. Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. Stick around. He'll be right back with us when we return for the Cryptid Report. Thank you, little Tommy Fessler, for that great super chat. Very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. From Disclosure Tonight. If you haven't already, go over to Disclosure Tonight. It's a great, great show of information.
I can tell who's wearing headphones right now by the reactions in the chat room.
Yep.
I'm going to go have a cig. I'll be right back.
All right, you go. Super Duke, Super Duke. Scared the hell out of me when he did that. They're here. Welcome to SOR Chat. I don't want you, and I don't need you. That's right, Mennonite Abe. I was waiting for somebody to drop that. The beautiful people. The beautiful people. The stargazing will not be on the live stream. The stargazing and the UFO watch, you will meet up at the casino, and then we'll get a bunch of rides out there for you. And go look for some UFOs. It'll be fun, they say. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Sweet Tommy Fessler. Super Duke, Super Duke. Ripping them up, they're Super Duke.
Damn straight. Scooting the chair around, moving the mug, making noises, being a slug.
Everyone always blames the chair.
Yeah.
Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got hot dogs. Look at that. There's Triple Ack in our chat room. It's only been about 8.5 months. Thanks for the Commonwealth love.
Yeah, the Bigfoot like when I do that scream. I taught that to Tom Araya from Slayer, but he never quite got it right.
Nice.
The Bigfoot enjoy it. It's one of the obnoxious noises they haven't figured out how to make yet, but I'm going to try and get them to figure out how to copy me.
Okay.
Then you go out in the woods, you'll be hearing all these, Slayer shrieks coming out of the woods going, what the hell is going on out here?
All right, our super chatters tonight. Big thank you to Human Carl ×2, Little Tommy Fessler, Sweet Donnie Cho ×4, Derek Jenny, Free Your Mind, and Scowling Greg O'Brien. We very much appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. 10 seconds. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We bring back in Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio and the Cryptid Report. We're heading over to the jungles of Vietnam for a little rock ape action.
Yes, indeed, you do. Before we get to that, I got to remind everybody that we're going to try and find some Sasquatch evidence while we're actually there in Nebraska. And we got the team from all over the continent, from Montana, from northern Canada, from the Gulf of Mexico, and one local boy. And we have less than a day in it. We're not going out that night. We don't have the time to do it. So we're going to try and run around for one day on Thursday. The weather report is that it's not going to rain, but it's going to be windy. So, yeah, well, it was windy the whole time we were there last time. So we're going to see what we can find in one day. And on the way down there, we've managed to figure out that we're going right past a historical spot that Ashton, who's traveling with me, really wants to see. And that is the burial place of Wild Bill Hickok in Deadwood, Sodak. So apparently we're going to stay there overnight, get up in the morning, and go pay our respects and film him. And Calamity Jane is also buried there, and film there. The last resting place, and then head from there over to the site. So anybody that's anywhere near Nebraska, don't miss it. It's going to be amazing over there.
Faux show. I can't wait to go there next year, man. Never been.
Yep. We had somebody cancel, and I already had mentioned to Robin that, well, Dave really would like to be over there at some point. And so she immediately just went, oh, I'll get a hold of Dave.
That was nice. Nice.
You're welcome, buddy.
Let's have some reports here. Give us a little Sasquatch stew.
Well, we're going back again to Vietnam, 1960s, and they're talking about the dispersion of weird things in the jungle that they have to worry about. And keeping in mind, because of the location, they had dangerous predators there. And they said, because of the tigers in the jungle and other land-dwelling predators, tigers, it should be noted that apes and monkeys nest up high in trees. If rock apes were really apes, what in the world were they doing scrounging around on the ground, especially in the middle of the night? This behavior is contrary to all we know about the great apes. I'm reminded of the insistence of one biologist who said they were not apes at all, but more like some upright walking monkey men. And this is from Quezon, more references to the rock apes. Marine by the name of Castillo, Security Platoon 26th Marine Headquarters, says, Quezon Combat Base was to the south of us. At night, a trip flare went off to the north side of us. Castillo went to see what he thought would be the Viet Cong, as the flare had been going off for weeks. When he got there, he was told it was furry rock apes that seemed to have manes down their backs. The description didn't make much sense, except that I have in my files an account where multiple informants have observed a Sasquatch, they said, had a mane of hair down its upper back, all black lengthy hair. In a separate incident, a GI offered this description, quote, it had an oblong head framed its hair-covered face. Dark, deep-set eyes lay beneath a prominent brow, and they did nothing to complement the heavy jowls and angry mouth. As it stepped into a small clearing, we could see that matted, reddish-brown hair ran down the creature's neck and covered most of its body. Whatever it was, it stood at least 5 feet tall, had broad shoulders, long, thick, muscular arms, and a heavy torso. It walked upright. That the things walked upright was a recurring comment among those who saw the so-called rock apes. In the small clearing, it stopped and studied the Americans. "What the hell is that?" someone called out from behind Linderer. "It's a rock ape," said another member of the squad. Another member disagreed. "No, it ain't," he said. "I seen rock apes, and that sure as hell isn't a rock ape." It's an orangutan, well, isn't it?" Linderer asked while the others kept their eyes glued on the strange creature. "Well, if it is, then he can't read a map. There's no orangutans in Vietnam." Orangutans in the wild don't walk upright as a normal course of behavior. They're knuckle walkers. Orangs are rarely terrestrial. They swing around in the trees where orangs feel safest. At night, the orangs definitely nest in trees. They wouldn't be walking upright or about a clearing at night. Why? Because, again, tigers prowl at night, as I mentioned before. Orangs are found in the island countries of Sumatra, the Kalimantan, and Borneo, all islands away from the mainland. There are no great apes in the wilds of China, Laos, Cambodia, or Vietnam. The other point is, apes don't walk upright in single file or in large troop contingencies. As an aside, small tailless monkeys known as Barbary macaques are found in Morocco and Algeria. These monkeys have also been called rock apes. Macaques, however, are not apes, they are monkeys. Also, the macaque monkeys on Gibraltar are also known as rock apes. Macaque adults are much too small at only 1.5 feet to fit the physical height description American GI soldiers gave. If not an identifiable non-human primate, then what was it these soldiers saw? Why then would an upright walking hair-covered entity be called an ape? They were not described as unusually tall either, but described more in line with the diminutive indigenous people of those countries. They were not called apes by the locals, but by Western man, American GIs in this case. The Ngororong were considered a wild men by the locals. They're covered with bodily hair, unclothed, and live and survive with other wild creatures in the jungles. They hunt in groups, sometimes seen accompanied by other wildlife. A Cambodian gentleman, Sang-Ha Lim, told Dr. Joe Watanabe that some of them hunt with shaped spears. They can take down small birds with stones and talk among themselves and hum like sing-song, sounding much like a swarm of stinging hornets with clicks, head nodding, and gyrations. The descriptions I've been able to collect are identical to our North American Bigfoot, except height and muscle mass, which seemingly is a bit less with the rock apes. They are not as massive, but they are very strong and fierce. They do not have tails and are considered wild people, not apes, even though the hairiness reminded the Marines of the great apes. In 1996, Kim Nguyen, a Cambodian field biologist working near the Dong Am Phan National Biodiversity Conservation Area on the borders of Vietnam and Laos, described the Vietnamese Ngororong as a sort of bipedal wild man, saying, "Not all of them are fully haired, most are lightly haired," an interesting remark worthy of note. Nguyen believes strongly that some of the Ngororong bred indiscriminately with villagers in high remote settlements. A colleague, Gen Shen Vo, apparently stumbled onto such a tribe in 1987. Some were hairy and hostile. I think the term hostile actually translated as belligerent. And few understood their native tongue. Most of them were unclothed, filthy, while others peeked out from a cave opening in the rocks. It was the women who were the hairiest, the men less hairy and more Asian-looking. Vo was threatened with bamboo prods like you would expect of people who had never seen a civilized man before. They were very afraid of Vo and his companions. Nguyen described a 1995 interview he had with a man from Atapu province. The pilot reported he was, quote, rolling out of Dong Am Phan airport runway in light rain when two wild men came into view towards the end of the runway running lights. Apparently, the pilot got a good view of the two as he pulled up. Nguyen said the wild men were described as having long, trailing black body hair and were skinny but otherwise appeared in good condition. The interesting behavior noted was the lack of interest in the plane's propellers or the danger of walking onto an active runway. Nguyen sensed that they were part of a tribe of wild men that had been reported living near the Pho Vang Mountains. Nguyen cited another conversation with a group of rice huskers he had encountered in a small village in the south of the mountains at Ban Lan Nho, Laos. They described seeing the wild men, or Ngoyong, pass through the fields on several occasions. Physically described the same, the Laotian wild men were thought mute and dumb. Often squatting and watching them work, they had piercing black eyes. Their intent was on observing the villagers. The wild men would remain in a squat, motionless, for long periods of time, becoming, quote, like stones, unquote. The wild men would rise to their feet and scream when approached, then flee in opposite directions from one another in apparent terror. Few attempts were made to scare them away because they were fast enough to catch the rice field rats, which burrowed in the rice paddies, destroying the terracing. Nguyen was at the time working under the tutelage of Dr. Joe Watanabe, interviewed a Vietnamese rice farmer's family who informed Nguyen about a family of wild men who kept a huge wildcat with black and white stripe markings on it as a companion for hunting animals. The big cat hunted monkeys, rats, and birds in the trees for the wild men. Rats, of course, are the pièce de résistance for the hill people and daily fare at meal time, especially in soups. The head of the rat is delicacy. Meat sucked out of the skulls in most Asian cultures, the rat is a sign of prosperity, wealth, and generosity. The wild men are said to be lazy and steal rice. Flip too far ahead here. Steal rice from storage barrels. The farmers and the hill people alike avoid them. They have, quote, bodily sores that ooze and they stink like foul mash, unquote. Nguyen had one unconfirmed report of a Cambodian wild man covered with silver and black hair that had blue eyes. In my data, there was the previously mentioned blue-eyed Bigfoot at Marine Base Quetico, Virginia, and another report that originated from the north of French Quebec, Canada. The third reference to a blue-eyed Bigfoot appeared in Mary Green's book, 50 Years with Bigfoot, where a Sasquatch was born in the hills of Tennessee with blue eye color. And that's about Janice Carter, who was on my show for episode 100. Some in research attribute blue eyes to traces of Neanderthal DNA in the Sasquatch genome. Tracy Watson wrote a short paper that infers pigmentation phenotypes for Neanderthals, the Denisova genome, as well as several modern human and whole genome data in her paper, quote, Were Some Neanderthals Brown-Eyed Girls, unquote, published in Science Now in March 2012. An interesting read. An excerpt follows. Quote, one complication is that traits such as hair color are controlled by multiple genes. To determine the cumulative impact of multiple genes on the trait, the author assumed they could simply add together the impact of individual genes. The female Neanderthal, known as V133.26, for example, had 7 genes for brown eyes, 1 for not brown eyes, 3 for blue eyes, and 4 for not blue eyes. By the researchers' reckoning, that means a 6-gene balance in favor of brown and a negative balance for blue. So V133.26 Neanderthal eyes were probably brown. According to this method, all 3 Neanderthals had dark complexion and brown eyes, and although one was red-haired, 2 sported brown locks. So there you go with the Neanderthal thing. And as you'll find out on Sunday, I asked Melba Ketchum about this, and there is absolutely no Denisovan or Neanderthal genetics in the Sasquatch genome. So they're wrong about that one. Nevada's, yeah, excuse me, Nevada's nuclear test range. Several years back, my good friend Peter Gatilla shared the following newspaper article with me. Dated January 1980, the article cites Department of Energy as the at the time spokesman. Dave Jackson, who reported an employee of his saw a hair-covered creature walk across the road in the forward area of the nuclear test site heading toward Yucca Flats, which would mean this was the sighting of the Yucca Man, the site of numerous above and below ground nuclear tests. The incident was reported some 32 years ago. No way would any Department of Energy official admit something like that occurring at such a facility today. It's clear government policies have dramatically changed since this article was published. If I was able to uncover 5 dozen reported sightings on military installations, and I've read all of them to you now, it would stand to reason there are as many, if not more, that I didn't uncover. The Sasquatch know no boundaries or borders. Their perception for area limitations apparently has no beginning and no end. And speaking of end, that takes us to the end of this learned tome, except for one interesting page where they have a quote. And here is the quote. It's the whole page. It's got a piece of art on it, and it says, quote, "These are not just animals. These are a type of people. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be found." Quote, Dr. Melba Ketchum, November 29th, 2012, ABC News, Good Morning America. And that's who I have on my show on Sunday, and who Dave will have on his show next week, Dr. Melba Ketchum.
I know. I'm so excited about that. So excited. Maybe tell people why people have found her scientific study very controversial.
Because she hit the nail dead on, and the deep state that likes to cover things up freaked out immediately and did everything they can to discredit her. Sent all kinds of trolls to attack her. She's been threatened. They took her job away. They've done everything they can to smear her reputation, which was absolutely sterling up to the point where she got involved in this, and she never wanted to be involved in the first place. Hear more about that on my show. At the time that 9/11 happened and the towers came down, there were a lot of remnants in those towers that they needed to identify, and they put together a list of the top forensic people from across the U.S. that they wanted to come in and try and identify the remains. And the top name on the list was Dr. Melba Ketchum.
Wow. That's very interesting. We got about 4 minutes to go here, Super Duke, before we have to say goodnight. You know, we've talked a lot about Melba Ketchum. We've talked a lot about Todd Standing tonight, the great stories from the wars. You know, this is a subject that really expands 6 out of the 7 continents, you know, and
don't be so sure they're not in Antarctica. We got reports from British troops down there, SAS, that claim that they had contact with quote-unquote snowmen. So whatever that means, I'm not entirely sure they are down there, too.
Okay, 7 out of 7 continents, then. You know, but the idea behind it all is there doesn't seem to be a big population of them. The population, you know, if there was a hell of a lot more, there'd be a heck of a lot more to see. We'd have more sightings. We'd have more background. You know, sticking in North America here, how many do you think, ballpark, there are in North America? 500? 1,000?
I used to think there had to be a very small number because there were a limited number of sightings, and then I started realizing there was probably 10 sightings for every one that was actually reported. And then, so if you actually extrapolate 10 times the number of reported sightings, all of a sudden that's a whole hell of a lot of sightings. And then you have to also keep in mind that these things are extremely good at hiding and avoiding us seeing them. So there could be a whole ton of them around you for years, and you might never see one of them and know they're there. So what do I think? There's a ton of them. Jim Bear King from Mississippi did a survey in his areas. Now, he had been going out and doing Bigfoot research in the field for over 30 years all over the state and in adjoining states, and had a pretty good idea on the size of some of these different groups that he was doing the research with, because you start finding their tracks, same ones from same individuals, blah, blah, blah. And after a while, you get a good idea on how many are in this certain group. And you go over here 10 miles away, it's a different group. How many are in that one? You start adding it up. He figured that conservatively, there was at least 2,000 just in the state of Mississippi.
No kidding.
I know that there's at least 50 just in my two main research areas here in Montana.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Why do you think we don't see more of them, dude?
They don't want us to see them. They're trying to hide from us, and boy, do they have the skills to do it. I think vast majority of the time, probably 90% of the time, if you do see one, they let you see them. There's some reason they wanted you to see them. It's so rare that somebody, I think, rarely does somebody see one by accident. And it's usually the kind of encounters where it's like, well, I was driving down the road late at night and all of a sudden a Bigfoot ran across the road in front of me. And that's pretty much it. And that's probably the teenagers, and they got some of their friends sitting down in the ditch, waiting to see if they're going to slam on the brakes, shriek, poop their pants, whatever. Trying to get a rise out of them. It's the teenage pranks, and the parents are going, quit doing that! Quit running across the road!
Get off my lawn!
Well, and a lot of times it happens, it's so peculiar, too, because they're like on a straightaway that's like, say, 2 miles long or something. And they'll get right to where the Sasquatch is, and it'll practically jump out in front of the car, just short of it being where the car will actually hit them. They'll make sure that they're really close when they run across the road. So the car is definitely going to see them. Why didn't they just wait another 2 seconds until the car went past? They're not stupid.
Super Duke, it's that time of the night again where you get to tell us where everyone can find World Bigfoot Radio.
Well, you can find me on YouTube, BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble. And, of course, this coming weekend, not this one, but the following one, I'll be down in Nebraska, so come down and see my brand new presentation and hobnob with all of the other Bigfooters down there and find out how much actual Bigfoot evidence we found in our one day with boots on the ground in Nebraska, undertaking the impossible challenge. 4 out-of-staters. Can they find evidence in one day? Less than a day, just the daytime hours. Well, we'll let you know.
We'll always let you know, Super Duke. We will always let you know. Even if it means bringing back, I don't know, some of those big hairy cryptids that want to walk you down the aisle in the forest. Say, I caught myself a cute Super Duke out here.
Well, if we actually have success, we're gonna do this again in the future in some other state with some other team, and we're gonna call the series "Always Finding Bigfoot."
Right? Thank you, Super Duke. Very much appreciate you. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music. Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter, hashtag Space Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.
I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Super Duke. Super Duke.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can hardly wait to get down there and see all my friends again and new friends that I haven't met yet. And the audience, and then go. Mainly, I'm interested in running around the woods looking for Bigfoot in Nebraska because I haven't had a chance to do that yet. I mean, what the heck? As long as they're paying me to come down there and back again, the least I can do is spend one day looking for Bigfoot. I should be doing that, right?
Yeah, there might be something to that. You know?
It just goes on the resume. How many states have you actually got a chance to go out in the woods and look for Bigfoot? Well, that list just keeps getting longer all the time, and I like that.
Yes, you keep adding more states all the time.
Yep. And especially states where you actually find something. It's even more fun. Oh, yeah, I found that 19-inch track over there in Wisconsin that one time.
I found a nickel! Found a nickel!
And I get presents when I get there, too, because one of my friends has got a group of them that she interacts with, and one of them likes me a lot because she talks to me on the phone with the speaker on, and he thinks I'm funny. So she asked him if he could find me something and bring me a present. So apparently he found a Indian arrowhead out in the woods somewhere, and he brought the Indian arrowhead back. So she's bringing that with and giving it to me, and I'm gonna make a necklace out of it because even in actual authentic Indian arrowhead recovered from the woods is cool, but recovered from the woods by your friend the Bigfoot is even way cooler. So definitely making a necklace out of that one.
All right, give me 2 seconds here. Gotta figure this stuff out.
Hey to everybody in the audience. Hey, Jessica.
Super Duke. Super Duke.
I got to dig up more stuff on the rock apes over there because I've read a bunch of it before that I've been able to find again to include. Hey, Laura, glad I woke you up. You didn't miss the end of the show, huh? Yeah, there's some really creepy stories over there about some of the stuff where there were, like actually firefights between our troops and the enemy troops going on at night. And the rock apes somehow were involved in it too. And were raising hell, pitching rocks, and taking out people on both sides while it was going on.
I've heard those stories.
Man, I mean, it's not bad enough to be in a frickin' jungle and the far side of the world fighting in the dark against people you don't even know what the hell's going on, and then there's these weird apes throwing rocks at you too, or picking you up and pitching you off a hillside. What in God's name?
And eating you.
And eating you. Yeah, that could be the bad thing too.
Yeah.
Hey, Grandmaster. Well, the scariest story I heard from over there was actually that search and destroy team that was sent into that one village, and when they got there, the Viet Cong and the villagers all tried to surrender to them immediately, and there was no fight. And they went, "What the hell is going on here?" And they said, "Yeah, we need your help." From what? Well, that was when the two giants came walking into camp and started attacking them again, right into the village. Walked in, picked up a woman, bit her in half, and started trying to grab another screaming villager with the other hand while they were eating the upper half of her. And then they immediately realized why they were trying to surrender. And everybody opened fire on the two giants that were there, which didn't seem to be doing much good. But fortunately, they had a tank. And the tank did kill the giants very quickly, one shot for each one. And then when they reported back what happened, they were told, "Well, we've got another objective for you about 2 clicks away. It's a cave, and we think it's got the same, whatever designation they used for them in there." And at this point, they got super pissed off because it's like, oh, wait a minute. You assholes knew these things were here before you sent us in, and now you want us to go fight with more of them? F you. And that was pretty much the response I got from the troops after that one. It's like, no way in hell, we're not, even with a tank, we're not going 2 clicks and go and fight more of them in a cave. Go screw yourself. Napalm strike, morons.
Sometimes, Duke, I really do not like it.
Yeah, I get to do plenty of it. So, yep, the Giant of Kandahar story is not the first story, and this story actually came out from a guy who was a sergeant in charge there, and he was on his deathbed. He was dying of cancer and contacted actually Wes from Sasquatch Chronicles and told him the story. And he was in bad enough shape that he couldn't even really do an interview to actually do the story. But he managed to get all of it out to him and tell him what had actually happened. So he said, yeah, that Giant of Kandahar thing was not the first incident, because we had one in Vietnam too. And those bastards knew those damn things were there before they sent us in there.
No kidding. I think that's the ending. I couldn't imagine, like, those stories I've heard out of Afghanistan, where these Anubis-like creatures are walking around. The
Anubian dog man. Well, there's more giant reports out of Afghanistan too. I had somebody that was inside the country flying in a copter. There was 3 copters in a formation. They were going across this mountain valley, and in the process of flying across it, they kicked up 3 giants that were down in the valley below them. And the giants took off at a right angle away from the flight path of the copters. So there, it was hard to judge exactly how tall they were or how fast they were moving. But their guesstimate, and everybody in all 3 copters saw these things. All 3 of them were taken off. They were guessing they were like close to 15 feet tall, and they were running about 75 miles an hour.
Wow.
And that's why the Afghanis don't live up in the mountains. There's a reason they don't live up there. That's the reason they don't live up there.
I get that.
It's where they were when they had the Giant of Kandahar incident. They were actually in the mountains. A long-range recon team had failed to report back again. They had gotten ambushed by one of the giants, and then when they sent in the rescue team to find them, those were the guys that had the firefight with it. That'd make a hell of a movie. You could have the first part of the movie be where the original team went in there and gets all, nabbed by the giant one after another, kind of like a desert version of the Thing or something like that. And then halfway through the movie, the other team comes in to try and find their buddies. And then you get the end part of the movie where they shoot the shit out of him, haul his ass out on a gurney in a copter.
Oh, I hear you there, buddy. I hear you there.
And speaking of giants, North America, the red-headed giants in the cave in Lovelock, they're called the Sitka. Melba Ketchum is also doing DNA workup on them. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Because last time she got the Sasquatch genome study all done, and she didn't even release all the information on that. She was partway into doing the research on the Dogman, and now she's finishing the Dogman study, and she's working on other cryptids. So if you got chunks of cryptids that you got handy, send them to her. She's looking for chunks of cryptids.
You got some idiots. Never go wrong. Super Duke, I'm going to go turn down the heat of my house because it feels like it's about 400 degrees in here.
I know, God bless you. Poor guys are still getting snow up there. It's cold here, but it's only in the 40s. It's not going to snow again, hopefully.
It snowed today.
I know you said that earlier. Unfortunately, they're predicting that might happen here in a couple days, so fingers crossed it doesn't.
Couldn't believe it. But I take that over. A lot of times, do you get the wicked hailstorms there?
Not usually. We get grapple. It's like miniature hail.
You're not getting like ping pong ball size hail.
No, that doesn't usually happen here. It takes a lot of moisture to do that, and we don't get that much. When you get these things that look like snowbanks, and then you look at it closely, and it's none of it is snow. It's all tiny pellets. It's grapple.
Yeah, we get a bad hailstorm once every 2-3 years. Kind of bad. I mean, I knew one person in town just bought a brand new car The next day, there was like 10 grand damage on it.
Oh my God.
The hail. I've seen cars written off, dude.
Oh God. Oh, that'd be so
Everything's
disappointing.
perfectly good. This needs a new outside and new windows. They write it off.
God, no, thank you. Yeah, the Great Plains gets a lot of that over there in Nebraska and places like that. That's where you get the big hailstorms and stuff. We don't get that. We don't get tornadoes here either.
Right. Yeah, we don't get tornadoes up here. We get dust devils, but not tornadoes.
Yep. Yeah, we had a couple little dust devils playing around out in my yard the other day because there's all kinds of leaves there, and they were making little miniature tornado things. It was fun. I got the local deer here all coming over and mooching from me. There's two really huge bucks that have suddenly realized that if I'm standing out on the porch and they come over, I might feed them an apple. And the last time I made them work for it, I took the apple and I held it down through the rungs of the porch, and it's a 7-foot tall porch. And they had to stand up on their hind legs and take it out of my hand to get it. And they both did it. Next time I'm going to film it because it's funny looking. Those deer are like, I don't care. You know, and the one, you could tell he was like smelling my hand and he kept snorting. Human smell. Oh, there's an apple there. Human smell. Apple. I think he finally grabs the apple out of my hand.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we get that. We got one mama who comes around almost daily looking for her little quick feed out.
I had a friend that was camping on an island, and I made my way over there, and he wasn't around at the time. He had gone and was coming back. I think it was like almost an hour later after I got there. He finally showed up. And while I was sitting there, here comes this deer. Big doe. She comes walking over to me. I'm looking at her like, I'm out in the woods. You're a wild deer. Why are you walking up to me? You know, it's kind of suspicious. You got rabies or something, you know? And she comes walking right up to me, and she just flicks her ears and licks her lips. And I'm sitting there eating a Subway sandwich. And suddenly I realize she wants some of the sandwich. And I go, this is a steak sub. You don't want any of this. See? So I hold it over to her. She grabbed the friggin' steak sub out of my hand and ate all of it. And then my buddy called me, and I'm on the cell phone going, hey, where are you? I'm at your campsite. And he goes, oh, I'll be out there in a little bit. What are you doing? And I said, well, one of your local deer just stole my steak sub and is eating it right now. He said, she keeps going around the island mooching up anybody that's camping out there. She's been out there for a couple weeks now, and she's got a fawn with her. And the reason she's not leaving the island is because there's a mountain lion that knows she's on it. And he won't come on the island because there's humans camped on it. And she won't leave the island because the fawn can't outrun him yet. So I think she's kind of stuck on the island until the fawn gets big enough. And sure enough, about 2 weeks later, her and the fawn were gone off the island. The fawn was finally big enough and fast enough to outrun the mountain lion. And she took him. They got out of there. But meanwhile, she's going around mooching from everybody camping on the island all the time for handouts.
Duke, I'll be right back, buddy. If you want to talk to the audience? Tell them some stories.
All right, anybody in question land in the chat room here, if you got any questions, throw them out. Maybe I might have an answer. Probably not. Both my main research areas, deer will come right up to you, and it's not because of domestication. It's exactly the opposite. It's because they don't know what the hell you are. They may have never seen a human before, so they're not scared of you. You get the same thing up there with the grouse and some of the other animals that in other states would flee like hell if they saw a human. They don't even bother to move. They just look at you curiously like, what are you? Mike, no, I don't even know what that is. Mr. Sub. Thirsty, they go right into the suburbs. There's plenty of stories about that where people have seen them right in the suburbs and stuff before. I've actually found evidence of them being on the Mississippi River going right up into downtown Minneapolis, because just to the south of it there's a giant wetland nature preserve, and the deer wander up and down the river, and they're probably following the deer upriver, and I try to catch them up there, and they're like literally right next to downtown in the big valley where the river is. So they're very, very, they're like everywhere, man. Anywhere that they could sneak in and get back out again, they'll go there. Laura, I don't actually like the idea of habituating or feeding them. I don't think you should gift them. And the only reason I'm doing it is because they started gifting me first, and then I felt guilty. And since I had the luxury of having somebody that could actually mind speak with them, I just had them ask them if there's anything they wanted me to bring. And so I actually get a shopping list, what they exactly want, and that's all I bring. And a couple times they wanted spices and stuff that they could apparently use for medical things, but usually it's just edible things, snacks, because like there's no way you could bring enough food to actually feed them. It's all, just bring me a treat. So it's usually things like apples or pears, peanut butter. They really like bacon. And they give me a list with whatever they need to bring with. First thing in the spring, they usually like me to bring garlic, because in the spring is the only time around here where it's wet and there's a lot of mosquitoes. And they just rub the garlic on their hair, and it apparently works really good for repelling mosquitoes and ticks. And then the rest of the year they don't want it. So apparently they don't eat it or anything. It's just bug repellent. Mike, they pretty much all have the ability, but it's like everybody has the ability to be a master martial artist too. If you haven't trained to do it, you're not going to be able to do anything. Our trailer was trashed. Yeah, Amy, that's not a good idea. Feeding them, not a good idea. The ones we have in my area are so damn polite, they won't even take our food out of camp, which is one of the first things that gave us a tip-off that there are like heavy presence of Bigfoot in that area, because there's no little scavenging animals. You can leave a half-eaten cheeseburger sitting on your table and come back 3 hours later, and it's still sitting there. And you can't normally do that in the woods. Some little scavenging animal will come up and take it and eat it. It's just not going to be there when you come back again. Or even worse, you'll attract grizzlies or something like that. But in this area, it's just, apparently that's all that's around. Any scavenging animals or anything just don't even hang around there, because they, not good for them. So yeah, it's made us really sloppy when we go camp in other areas, and we have to remember the regular protocol of keep all the food locked in the vehicle all the time unless you're eating it and that sort of thing. But when we're there, it's like, no, we can just leave crap laying all over the campsite. The only thing that comes into camp and tries to eat it are the deer. They came in and ate all my cookies one night. Yeah, they like berries and fruit and stuff like that. They have a sweet tooth, so any kind of like fruit that they can't get in their area, bananas, they don't understand what those are. They'll try and eat it, skin and all, and the skin is gross. So, yeah, they don't usually find things like that in their environment. Yeah, Penny, you're right. Like I said, down there by where the airport is, past it down there, there's that whole gigantic wetland down there. It basically doesn't even have roads in it, and it's huge. As a matter of fact, it's a problem at the airport because the little island right next to it in the river has such a huge deer population, and it's right next to where all the houses and stuff are up on the embankment above the river, so you can't have people in there with guns shooting the deer. So they have to have like a special season at least once a year down there just for the bow hunters to go in and clear out the deer herd down there, because there's so many of them, they're afraid it's going to cause a plane crash, because the deer will be running across the damn landing strip when the planes are trying to land, and they'll nail the damn deer. So that they literally have to give special permits and send people down there to clear them out. Well, if there's that many deer down there and it's right next to a gigantic nature preserve, guess who else probably knows about it? And yes, I found Bigfoot tree structures right on that island, right next to the Minneapolis airport.
Oh.
Susie, according to Robin that talked to the main clan that I interact with, they said they've been living up in that same part of the mountain range for about 400 years.
No, Uncle Duke will not be in Vegas this year, unfortunately.
Nope. Yeah, Penny, I didn't stop to do any visiting there. We drove in, got all my stuff out of storage, and turned around and left again. And that actually, Minneapolis was out the opposite direction. I had my stuff up north of the Twin Cities in a storage unit, so as soon as we grabbed it, we just turned around and went back toward St. Cloud.
Oh, wow. All right, Super Duke. We are going to call it the evening here because I've got to update my computers. They are moving slower than molasses right
Yeah, I know this one's giving me the screen reminder. I need to do updates too, and I just did the other one earlier today, so...
Well,
Same thing.
thank you, Super Duke, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.
All right. Take care, Dave. Always fun being on the show. Love all you guys, and we'll see you again here later this week.
We will, definitely. And a big thank you tonight to Monica, Thomas, Human Carl ×2, Sweet Donnie Cho ×4, Scowling Greg O'Brien, Jenny, Derek, and Free Your Mind for the amazing super chats. Tomorrow night on the show, it's Science Bob and Friends. We're going to get into the wonderful scientific side of UFOs tomorrow night. Science Bob and our special guest, Baptiste Francoeur. It's going to be great. We'll see you all tomorrow night, everyone. You guys all take care. Good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.